but here we go.
One time for the one time. It's the family bloodline.
What is good, family? We back. It seems like
It does. It does.
it seems like
I
it's been a
feel
while.
I feel rejuvenated. I don't know what you guys been up to, but I've been walking around paradise.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, let us in on it. What's the demo?
I was doing the Army's work down there in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gorgeous down there, man. I love it. I don't understand how people say they get island fever. I think people who get island fever have small creativity, man. No creativity. If I was down there, bro, if I was living in Hawaii, listen, I'll become a scuba diver instructor. I'll be down there swimming with Ariel, swimming. Get a boater's
Wow.
license, island hopping, everything, man. I might become a botanist. It's just so peaceful, bro. I did some hikes. I can't pronounce the names. I don't want to murder the names. They're so beautiful. Did some hikes, man. I seen the stairway to heaven. It's so just serene.
Diamond Head.
Wait, are you in California now?
No, I'm still in Virginia.
Oh.
I just got back from Hawaii. We had to do a class down there.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was
kicking and screaming, bro. Kicking and screaming.
He was down there living it. And so, well, hey, I mean, Danny was every MFing time. I swear for Jesus.
So you need some Hawaii in you too, man. It makes you more peaceful.
Oh no, I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want the Army to send me nowhere. Nowhere.
You got, man, you I like that the shave, bro. Like you about to be on again. Like you about to re-sign up, about to re-up.
Not at all.
Can I get a refill?
Hey, it's way too late. As a matter of fact, I told my kids this evening. That's all. I'm done. I can't renege on that. That's a promise that
everything.
Yeah, I gotta keep that. I gotta hold the line at this point. I've got to hold the line. So yeah. How long were you in Hawaii?
Not long enough, brother. I was down there for a week. Seeing the sunrise that came over the Pacific Ocean, the mountain tops, bro. It was just, man, listen, being in touch with nature.
Yeah. I got you. I love Hawaii. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. There's not many other places I've ever been that can compare to it. It's definitely an island place. You having trouble hearing, Rich?
No, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay. All right.
I know the background noise I'm getting.
Oh, that's that's I don't know if you got your AC on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. There's a way to I got you covered. So outside of being in Hawaii, what else have you been up to, Deuce? This I don't know where this net came from, but I'm trying to get rid of them. Fruit flies.
And there was nothing else besides Hawaii, man. I seen the gecko. I was disappointed. I thought the gecko was gonna like the gecko from the Geico commercials. But it doesn't. They don't walk on their hind legs, bro. Neither do they speak English, but they do click. Stuff like that, bro. I thought one was knocking. I thought one was knocking on the door by my feet, man. Seen the gecko, seen the centipede, stayed away from them.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it, man. It was back to the office, man. Those beautiful fluorescent lights with no windows in that nice tan building I work in.
Yeah. Where were you at?
So most of the work was done in Waikiki, but I got out of Waikiki as much as possible. Like the classes in Waikiki, but that's the tourist side. I went out to nature. Waikiki, seen one, seen them all. but I got out to I don't know the towns, man. I can't tell you. Well, it was all on what's the island Honolulu's on Oahu?
Mm-hmm.
Basically Oahu. We didn't have time to go island hopping, but we went to the other side.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like you made the most of your trip.
Oh
And
yeah.
good. Rich, what's new in the land of legalese or in California?
Continuing to fight. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Oh, so my supplemental appeal
Mm-hmm.
for my appeals 5 to 8, it finally got accepted.
Okay.
So, but I got
So what's the
some
next
other
step?
motions. I got other motions. The other side wanted to have other motions heard in the lower court. So there's a possibility that my 8 appeals could turn into 12 to 15 appeals. We'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the long. Yeah. So, but this is a civil matter.
So you're dealing with a different judge now?
No, same judge. I got 3 different lawsuits. One against the union to get my position back as president. And that's where I had those 8 appeals. And then I got an appeal against DMV when someone called and said I wasn't safe to drive, and they won't release that person's name so I can file charges on that person for fraudulent reporting. So that's in the appeals court. So anyway, let's move on.
Golly. All right. Gotcha.
That's why sometimes when I say things and the TV's telling you one thing, and I can say, hey, hold on a second, the TV's not telling you everything. These people are not telling you the whole story on these court cases and stuff, and how it actually happens. So.
Okay. Well, you're still pushing. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. Keep pushing, and but kind of like what we're saying now, you'll get what you want when you if you keep fighting. I mean, we're gonna fight like hell.
It helps to have lawyers. It does help. I don't have a lawyer. I'm taking on the blue machine called the Democratic Party here in the state of California. But it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. It's gonna be a ride, especially with what things that are about to come up. Different elections, different feeders. It's that time of the year again, right? They're what's this? July, August, September, October, November. So they're a year, 16 months out from midterms. And
that's too far away.
it's not. They've got to start running it now. They got to start running the gambit now, because if they don't, it's going to be too late, especially with the bill that just passed. So they've got to start distancing.
Wait,
the Senate sent it back to the House.
There you go.
And so, but even with that being said, what I mean is because people are actually signing on to this, the Republicans and other people, because people are signing on to this and it's a big thing, they have to begin to create distance, because there's a lot of information that is actually being pushed out about it, and it's affecting a lot of their base. And so if they've done it, they have to begin to try and spin it to maintain their seat, because people are going to vote against that.
Well, wait a minute.
Who's my girl? My representative from, I know she's a senator from Alaska, right?
Yeah.
So she got a deal. She was a standout. I forget her name, but they gave her concessions.
Murkowski?
It could be.
Lisa Murkowski.
They gave her concessions. She was against the Medicaid cuts, against the SNAP benefit cuts. They said, hey, vote for the bill where spare Alaska by saying this only applies to CONUS, the states that connect to the U.S.
Great. That's a great point.
Sure.
And the other
people hating her for it, but I'm like, she's doing her job for her state.
But wait a minute. Hold on. Here's the other thing about that. Remember, those tax cuts, some of that stuff, it doesn't go into effect until after the midterm election. So people won't feel the consequences of this bill until after the election.
Sure, and
And
I
that
understand
was a
that.
strategic move. They did
Yeah.
that later on. It
Yeah.
wasn't the initial. You're right. That was strategic.
Yeah, and I'm not everything that y'all are saying is absolutely relevant and legit. However, what I'm also saying is because of the information that's being pushed out and droves, like let's take, and we'll get into our actual topics in a second here, but let's take something into consideration. Just last week, President Trump said that he'd have things looked into for Elon to be deported. He said, I got to look into it, right?
Yeah.
Elon had previously threatened if this bill gets, I'm going to fund everybody's opponents. He already pushed that out there.
Really? He said that. I
Yeah,
missed that.
yeah, absolutely. He said, if you vote for this bill, I'm going to fund your opponent, and he's already started. Actually, he didn't just
Has
do
he?
that. Yeah, he's also began to invest in foreign entities to build wealth over there, since the president again publicly said he might have to have Doge begin to look into what Elon is doing. So now,
Right. But here's Elon's problem. Elon is trying to do what sports teams do, like the Yankees and some of the other teams that have a lot of money, a lot of revenue. We'll just outspend you and try to win. It doesn't always work like that.
I agree.
I disagree.
You say in politics?
Okay. I agree. I agree with your statement as constructed. It doesn't always work. My contention comes in. It's working now in modern times. There have been some fights, some Republican, some not Republican, representative battles where somebody won who wasn't heavily funded. Sure. The presidency was won by buying votes.
Yeah.
No, because wait. I'm glad you brought that up, because you just walked yourself into another trap. Because
ain't no trap on me.
Hold on. The Republicans.
Over here.
Wait a minute. The Republicans were outspent this time. Remember?
When were they out?
Kamala Harris raised $2.5 billion in 4 months.
She did
not.
She did.
Yes, she did.
She didn't.
Yes, she did. She raised $2.5 billion, a record number for a presidential campaign in only 4 months, and they don't know where the money went to.
She didn't raise that amount. They already had a huge surplus from the previous campaign.
No, that was Biden's money that went to her. She on her own raised $2.5 billion in 4 months. Couldn't account for it. Couldn't tell you where the money went to. I'm telling you, that's going to come back to haunt her.
Because I do remember that there was a large sum that was raised. I just couldn't remember.
$2.5 billion in 4 months.
I'm gonna have to check that
The
out.
Democratic Party this time outspent the Republican Party. So
I don't know if they actually outspent them, because remember, just by himself, Deuce, can you look that up too?
250 or
I got it. You know what?
million?
As much as I hate to say these, I hate to say the words about to come out of my mouth right now. Rich is
it's money.
Ready. All right, so check it out. Harris outraised Trump by roughly $540 million overall.
How much?
$540 million.
That's not the whole number. That's not the whole number.
The gap.
I'm gonna write this down.
What link are you looking at? They said she raised $2.5 billion. Then after the election, they said, "Where'd you spend all that money at?" And she couldn't give an account.
Well, I think that's what it says. Trump raised $1.4 billion.
So you're just talking about the gap, the actual gap.
Well, hold on. If you raised 1.4 and you said she had 500, and I'm saying she had 2.5 billion in 4 months, we're 500 billion off. But she outspent him, and she was over 200, over 2 billion.
They're allocating the difference between the rollover from Biden Harris to Harris. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I gotta look that up, because I'm
that's gonna come back on her later down the road.
But even still, he's right. They did outfund.
Yeah.
She did it in
the
4
Harris campaign
months.
outfunded the Trump campaign. 4
months she did that.
I'm not gonna look that up, because I'm gonna take your word at it.
4 months. This was huge what she did. Phenomenal.
Sure.
Because they were doing everything they could the left was doing everything they could to stop Trump from getting reelected. They was doing everything.
Well, okay, you know what?
Right
I think talking about that, they did some things later down the line, but when Trump lost against Biden, the Republicans started their forefront to ensure that Trump won the next one because they saw what their weaknesses were. They studied, they adjusted, and so you were right. The Democrats once again reacted. No planning. We're gonna react. The Republicans like, oh, this is how we lost. Let's shore up our weaknesses so we can win. It worked out. Planning. Who would have thought?
Some of the Republicans didn't want him to run again, but they got beat out. Didn't. So, anyway.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, all I'm saying is the midterms. Yeah, the midterms are coming, and they have to begin in order to maintain their seats this round. This is just my personal belief because there's so much muck, there's so much mire, there's so much chaos happening on every single front that we look at. The Republicans are going to have to begin to distance themselves from this stuff now. They have to start now. Waiting until the summer of next year is not going to work anymore because of everything that's happening.
But wait a minute. I think you're right. I think you're right. I tell you what, that primary, Democratic primary for the mayor of New York City.
Yes.
That guy won.
Indication.
Okay. Now, when that final, I guess it's in November, when they had that final election and Cuomo's running as an independent, the guy's running as a Democrat, Mamandi, and then Adams is going to run. He may run as an independent too.
Yeah.
Or a Republican. I don't know. That's going to give us some type of indication. Some type.
And that the reason, yes, you're 100% correct. And you look at, and even so, generally speaking, if things wouldn't have happened the way they had, I would have been like, well, he's a shoo-in, right? He'll be in that position again. But because things have become so extreme that no actual party is really being favored by the people, that people are beginning to feel more comfortable hearing, oh, I'm an independent. Or even if it comes down to, well, I'm a Democrat, I'm a democratic socialist, right? The population, Americans in general, are beginning to become more comfortable with that because both of the basic parties have put such a distaste in Americans' mouths that they're writing them off. They're starting to write them off.
Well, let me ask you this question then.
Yeah.
The way I see it is that breaking up into different segments like that, I think is more on the left side. Or do you think it's more on the left side than the right? I feel like the right has their pockets. I'm MAGA, I'm not MAGA. I'm MAGA, I'm old school Republican, right? I think there are less boxes to check on the right. The left is spiraling. I think to what you're saying, I think that applies to me, my perception. I wonder what you guys think, more to the left. That's where you hear all these different labels.
Yes, and
the right has more of an identity, more of a core identity.
So the right has a core identity, but the principles have been perverted, and people are seeing it at this point. People are seeing it because, like you made a perfect example. The governor of Alaska. I really didn't want to vote for it. I don't like it. I didn't really want to do it, but I did it because Senator. Thank you. But thank you. Yep, you're right. You're 100% correct. But I did it. I did it because I got something for my state. And so when everybody else sees that and they see that the right is playing that type of field, all it takes is one to paint a bad picture. And everybody's going to, again, look at the protests that recently happened. The protests that were happening before LA, they were predominantly done by older white people. It wasn't us. It wasn't us. And they began to go out in the streets, and you had a huge group of people that began to say, hey, listen, I'm ex-MAGA. I'm no longer MAGA. I can't do this. or I used to be a Republican. Very similarly so, you'd hear a lot of people saying, oh, I used to be Democrat.
Right.
So I think both parties are in horrible disarray.
You know, this
here,
past weekend, go ahead, Rich. What you got?
No, but there's still two critical issues that the Democrats failed to. The right does not have a core identity more than Latino. That's a great point, Mike Evans.
It's Marquise.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that completely. Yeah, they do have an identity. They have MAGA exists.
Well,
now, the perfect branding, it exists. It's the identity is what they ran on to win.
But listen to this. People can get mad at President Trump all that they want, but these news companies are paying out lawsuit money to him.
Woo! Say that again.
Winning. All right, he's in winning season right now.
Yeah, so he's winning his lawsuits. So there must be some element of truth on what he's saying about how they were attacking him. Okay.
No, I don't. Well, I don't. Okay, I disagree with that point, but go ahead.
Well, the transgender issue, the Democrats are stuck on this transgender and on this open border. As long as you stay stuck on this issue, Donald Trump can deport half the country. He'll still keep your favor. I'm just telling you can't win that because I'm an independent, and the independents know, hey, we're not prejudiced against gay people, but in the same hand, you can't let trans girls compete in women's sports. You cannot allow that. And President Trump is running with that, and he's taking it to the Democratic Party every which way but loose. And he's taking it to all the liberal universities. In addition, allegedly, this is how I'm saying this, allegedly, because the universities are not protecting the Jewish students. I'll stop there.
I stopped there.
What
point did you say I disagree with? I forgot.
I'll stop there.
This stuff down.
So we don't have to talk about the Jewish students or anything because we're not anti-Semitic or anything. We're on a podcast. We're going all across the world. We want everyone to be treated with love and respect and dignity. We know that there was a Holocaust. We know this. But President Trump is doing work against anti-Semitism on Harvard and in the Ivy League. Which is so ironic to me because so many Jewish kids go to these Ivy League schools and become highly successful.
So you said that he's won. There's truth in it because he's winning these lawsuits. I don't think so. I think that just represents an imbalance of power. He's in the seat now. For instance, that law firm that was representing clients that were against Trump, he blackballed them from having any federal clients.
Yeah.
You got to pick your pocketbook, right? So I think it's more, and then even the news agencies, he was barring them from everything if they didn't publish favorable information towards him. And now I'm seeing even those left agencies starting, they're not coming over the Fox side, but they're giving more favorable light to him.
Here's the long-term effect. When you put a black man into the White House 2 straight terms, and you almost had universal health care, but you just did Obamacare or Affordable Care Act, which helped out so many people. Long-term effect, now you get a president like President Trump on 2 different terms. What's going to be the long-term effect of him once he leaves office? If a Democrat or anybody from a non-Republican party gets up in there and they hate President Trump, hates his policies.
I'm trying to figure out what the kids are doing upstairs. I just heard the clang. That's why I looked up like that. Like, what the hell?
The way he's doing things, you're giving a blueprint to the next president to run amok if he has the support of the Supreme Court behind him, or her.
Well, okay, you're right, the blueprint, but it can't be repeated as quickly because, as you said, Supreme Court, if they have your back, bro, that's like the old school Dallas Cowboy line when Emmitt Smith was running through. You got them, you can make any hole you want to, right? You're going through, but they don't have term limits, right? So
currently,
yeah, because I think that's a whole ass problem. I think senators, congressmen, Supreme Court justices, everybody. If the president has to have a term limit, all of them need to have term limits. They put it that way because they are
say it like that.
Yeah,
don't say it like that. No, because I feel like somebody at Trump's team is gonna say, Mr. Glass had a great point. Since the Supreme Court justices don't have term limits, I don't think you should either.
Yeah, you can flip it back.
They're
But
gonna
Senator
invert it.
Cruz, Ted Cruz from Texas said years ago he wanted term limits, and I was surprised because actually when he said that, both houses, bipartisanship came together and said we're not having term limits.
Yeah,
They shut it down.
yeah,
Crazy.
and that's
Quickly,
to be
both
anticipated.
houses,
unfortunately.
both parties.
Yeah, I think they're wrong as hell for that. I think they're wrong as hell for that.
You're right,
But
and
you keep electing a Democrat or a Republican.
And I don't disagree with this comment either, that they're not the same. The president is one person, the rest are groups. I agree with that. However, the people in the groups, they should still have, there has to be some type of turnover, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is because we are fighting against, we're fighting legislation from people in their 70s and 80s that we shouldn't be fighting anymore. The amount of legislation that's talked about and pushed through for shit that we grew up in and we've been able to actually establish with our peers is stuff that they're still struggling with. Like the majority of my peers right now, white men that I can talk to, I can reach out and talk to and say, hey, is racism a thing? They'll be like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And the majority of them that I know, at least outwardly, will directly say, and we're sick of it. Because it puts you against me, it puts me against you. Our kids have to go through this, blah, 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 blah. And we got bastards that are still in office that are trying to legislate this shit. And this should be done.
Well, I feel
There's
like
no progress.
MK's point, MK, this is MK Steakhouse out here. I keep want to call him MK Steakhouse. So he's thinking about the individual person.
Yeah.
The thing you got to step back and look at the bigger picture. Those people represent the power of that specific branch of government, right?
Wait a minute.
So that's what we got to focus on is the branches of government and who's driving the steering wheel there.
MK Evans, he's wrong. I'm gonna tell you where he's wrong. When he says it's just one president, just one.
That's why I disagree with him too. Yeah.
Listen to this. All three branches are equal, allegedly. Okay. So just because you have one person in one branch, it's still a branch that's equal to those other two branches. So it doesn't matter about the other two branches having, more than one person. All three branches are equal. Allegedly, that's what they teach us in the U.S. government. So no, you can put.
That's what I'm saying. You got to think about the power that those branches have.
Equally, they say they're all equal. They're supposed to be all coexisting equally.
Except for SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, they don't have an equal share of power. And the reason why I say that is because they will be there for life. Congressmen and women and senators, so on and so forth, they have the opportunity of being voted out or losing their seats. SCOTUS.
The power is the same. I think what you're arguing is the access to power. The power is still the same. When you talk about just the branches of government, but the access, the duration changes because of limits and other things.
So this is why I say that. Look at what happened with Roe v. Wade. Golly, we're so far off topic. We'll circle back around in a second. I didn't even get to read the disclaimer yet. But look at what happened with Roe v. Wade, right? And how the Supreme Court ruled over that. Now you take Wisconsin, who their Supreme Court just overturned a 176-year-old abortion ban in their state, right? So they have
is allowed in Wisconsin now.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so these folks have a little more power than what I think we want to let on.
Who's
right?
these folks?
Our federal judges, the Supreme Court judges.
Yeah. MK Evans, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know. The states cannot put term limits on their representatives in Congress. He does not know what he's talking about. That's an absolute falsity. That's wrong.
Well, I don't. Okay, I can't disagree with what you just said.
Completely wrong on this. And I'm not trying to yell at you, MK Evans, but when we have this show, we have strong opinions. But opinions is one thing. Facts regarding the U.S. government, regarding the elections of the different positions, and their lack of term limits, those are facts. Those are not opinions.
And so I know Marquise, he can hold his own.
Okay, no, okay, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
I see what he's trying to say. It's
I think I do
the
too.
phrasing of it's not. So, okay, if you think about the representatives of the people from the states, right? They will have to write a bill to put term limits on themselves,
Yeah.
right? So, can it? Is it possible? Sure. Is it probable? No.
They do an amendment because they did an amendment about the. I can't remember the amendment, what number it was, about having term limits on the president. They did an amendment for that after FDR passed away.
FDR.
They did an amendment.
Yeah.
Was it the 50th, not the 51st? Oh, I can't remember the name. 25th, 24th amendment for term limits. They can't put it on the books. They'd have to do an amendment to the Constitution.
I have to look at that.
So to ask Mr. Evans to look it up, they put the term limits on the president of the United States. That came with an amendment. It's the you know what? I'll do it myself. The 24th or the 25th.
Okay.
President.
It's still something they would have to vote on, though, right?
Yes, it would still have to be voted.
So you
and they're not going
limits
to
on
vote.
yourself.
Yeah, and they won't do it.
22nd Amendment after 1951. 22nd Amendment ratified after almost 4 full years of deliberation. 2 term limits on presidency. The 22nd Amendment of the United States of America.
Yeah, I think that's such a horrible thing that we've. Well, actually, no. Let me rephrase that. I think they were they were very cunning on how they did that.
Correct.
Yeah, they were.
Yes.
Yeah, Yep. Let me put that up there just to be transparent with everybody and read. They can amend the Constitution instead of adding it.
You know what? Wait a minute. Check this out.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're talking about the U.S. Constitution and all this,
Yes.
Is that a thing
Birthright
anymore?
Citizenship from a few days ago on June 27th, the United States Supreme Court, when they said that
They didn't talk. They didn't have a case on that.
Wait. We're gonna get to that. We'll get to that part, dudes. But go ahead.
But I want to say something quickly about that. No, they did not. They did not decide. They did not decide the birthright citizenship.
Mm.
But why is it that black folks were stuck on stupid? Why is African Americans stuck on stupid? They say, "Oh, if you're born on U.S. soil, you get automatic citizenship." No, that was not the intent of the 14th Amendment. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment was for the enslaved Africans and their descendants. That's why they said it like that.
Okay, I see where you're coming from.
Someone coming to the country illegally,
okay,
popping out 2 or 3 kids and saying they have U.S. citizenship. No, you hijacked Juneteenth. You hijacked my blackness. You hijacked me over that issue. The LBG2 has hijacked my birthday month. Yours too, by the way. Hijacked Juneteenth. You've hijacked civil rights. No, it wasn't meant for all of us. The 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment was made for the enslaved African and their descendants. That's what it was designed for.
Break that down. I don't understand.
So he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Into slavery, except for Mr. Glass says, except for if they say
servitude,
slavery, involuntary servitude, okay? Unless you're imprisoned, okay? The 14th said if you were basically a descendant of the enslaved African, if you just got your freedom, okay, Mr. Evans, thank you.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. I knew what he was saying.
Okay.
And
I apologize, Mr. Evans. Okay.
And even
so
to that
point, those 3 amendments.
Yeah.
So when they keep talking about this birthright citizenship, and I'm gonna tell my friend from Africa, because she said, "No, I don't think that's right." Bullshit.
So
you have people born over here.
You know what? I never read them. In sequential order, and it flows.
Yes.
Wow.
Because I read.
Yeah, the 13th Amendment, the shortest amendment of the Constitution. That's where it begins to outline the end or a termination for a certain segment of the American population, especially if you are African Americans or the enslaved people of America that were brought over here, unless you put yourself into involuntary servitude again, right? And then it begins to talk about, because now we have to begin to figure out how to vote, right? It talks about we're moving into the 14th Amendment, and in order to vote, you have to be a citizen. You have to be a citizen of the United States of America, right? And at a specific point in history, we weren't citizens, and so we weren't allowed to vote. However, President Lincoln had stated that he wanted black soldiers to be able to vote from the Union at the very least.
Hold on, take it a step further.
Mm-hmm.
It says here, this amendment addresses citizenship, due process, and equal protection under the law. White folks already had that. You had to do that for the free slaves.
Which amendment are you talking about?
The 14th Amendment.
14th.
Sure.
The 14th.
Let's take this a step further. It says it defines citizenship as being born or naturalized in the U.S., subject to its jurisdiction. It's referring to the enslaved African who now has his or her freedom. And when it says here, not to rush off into the next part, it talks about rights. Okay? What it didn't tell you is, and then the 15th Amendment went down further about voting. What it didn't tell you is that was for men, black men.
Yeah.
Enslaved black men, not white women.
Nope.
Because women, regardless of their race, didn't get the chance to vote until
we're in suffrage.
The
right?
19th.
Yeah.
The 19th.
Right. And so you got to where I was going with that, because those amendments were, you're correct. And so when President Trump says that these amendments were for the enslaved peoples, I have to agree with him on that. The reason why
who said that?
President Trump said that
out of his mouth.
He said the 14th Amendment was for the slave.
Black Republicans in the Republican Party who's probably reached out to Stephen Miller or somebody and said, "Hey, look here."
Anybody but Stephen Miller, fuck that guy.
I'm sorry. I'll retract that name, Stephen Miller. But there are Black Republicans who are so upset about this. You don't hear them on TV. They're so upset because what is happening is the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment, quote, Reconstruction Amendments.
Yeah.
So when white people try to tell us, well, slavery happened all over across the world, you show me slavery where you took one group of people, brought them to another continent, excluding the Indians from India that took to the Fiji Islands, and changed their name, changed their culture, and you did it so bad, you did it so horrendously that you had to go on in your beautiful document, your U.S. Constitution, and add their asses in there. Nowhere else in history is that like that. Not in Greece, not in Egypt, but that was Black folks owning Black folks. Oh, I'm fired up tonight. I don't know why.
I don't know, but I like it. But yeah, so when President Trump says that, when he brings that point out, and it might, for whatever his intentions are, he's actually correct in that stance. When he said that, he was absolutely correct. And I went back in my thesaurus and I started reading a whole bunch of stuff, and I was like, damn, he's correct. I can't.
Why? He said the black children, the black babies.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to say that, but he knows that the liberals can't attack him on that.
Right.
Because he's talking factual. And now they can take that whole idea of birthright citizenship and say, well, that's for the Black folks. See, we're not prejudiced. We help fight for your freedom. We're the Republican Party. See, that's the rest of the spin. Which factually, he would be correct. The Republicans were the anti-slavery party. That's facts. In that time period.
Okay, thank you.
In that time period. So that's why I get a little fired up. So when I'm talking to people, like, well, if you're born here on U.S. soil, you get automatic citizenship. So in other words, that's
interpretation of the amendment.
And that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to.
Let's go back to what Mr. Mike Evans is saying. Three-fifths compromise was because the whites and stuff were counting slaves. There you go. He's right on that. There's your electoral college. There's your electoral college.
The North was like, hold on, man. Y'all had too much. Y'all got too much weight. Too much weight. You got to chop that.
Let's go back to something, though, about putting term limits on the U.S. Congress and doing an amendment. Here's the crazy thing. When the U.S. Supreme Court finally decides to make a decision on its birthright citizenship, if they overturn Roe versus Wade, that was huge. And the Republican Party, they survived. Somehow, some way, they survived that. They got reelected. This birthright citizenship, Thomas and Alito are ready to overturn and interpret that differently. They're ready.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But they need 3 more. And Judge Roberts is so smooth, but he knows factually that this birthright citizenship was not put in place for someone to come to the country legally and have children, and those children get U.S. citizenship. He knows it in his heart, but does he have the guts? Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett, do they have the courage of their convictions? Because actually, President Trump could pull this off.
Here's the nuance with that, right? So, abortion.
Look that up. I'm gonna write that down.
What they did was push it back down in the states, right? They didn't say yay or nay. They just pushed it down in the states rights.
We jumping ahead.
But we already there. We already there.
Go ahead.
So, birthright citizenship, when you say overturn, I think the reason they won with abortion is because they didn't undo it, but they were sneaky about pushing it down to the states, saying the states have the choice. You can't do the same thing with birthright citizenship. So what is that out? You know what I'm saying? What is that out? And actually, what is Trump trying to do? I don't think he's trying to overturn.
Yes,
he's trying to just reword it, right?
No, he wants that overturn.
He's trying to
he wants to build it.
Oh yes. And
so what does that look like?
What they're going to say is we're going to clarify what the intent was on birthright citizenship. But listen to this. Hold on.
Clarification is different from overturn.
Wait a minute. No. Because I want to get back to Mr. Mike Evans here.
Okay.
There was slavery in the Middle East. And they always try to say that kind of shit. Well, there was slavery everywhere. It was not based on racial superiority. It wasn't based on racial superiority that led to Christianity being whitenized and Jesus and God and the angels being portrayed as being white. So there's a very unique thing called the enslaved African. Don't try to make that slavery equal to any other slavery, because there is no equality for that.
I don't know anything about the Zanji Rebellion. I'm going to look it up before I speak on it.
I don't care what rebellion it was. It wasn't based on racial superiority. That racial superiority that the Europeans used to enslave Africans, they first got it started with Emperor Constantine. And when they started having the Sistine Chapel of God and Jesus and the angels being white, that gave them the impetus to go and conquer because of their whiteness, because they thought they were favored, that God favored them. And then the most favored of the white people were the, quote, white Jews. See, if they want to talk tonight, come on here. But don't ever try to justify that the slavery that the enslaved African went through, who lost his name, his religion, he was castrated. Many of them got thrown off board. You don't know how many people from Africa were thrown away.
I'm going
to the Middle East.
Look at that one.
I am not covering for the Middle East.
Slavery,
no, it's not based off of superiority. I said racial superiority, Mr. Evans.
Once I get,
you know what?
Hold on, talk about Rich. Talk about you got it. Don't let them get you riled up. I'm gonna post a link to invite people in a second. I just want to get to our first.
Okay.
First
yeah.
I gotta read the disclaimer.
Is this the same guy from last week? Is this the same guy?
No.
You sure?
No. Yep, 100% sure. 100% sure. Disclaimer: views expressed are those held by the author and do not represent any other organization, company, corporation, or entity. All right, that is the disclaimer. And we're going to pause where we were. I don't know how we even jumped into that, but that was great. That was good.
I blame you. It's something you did. I'm pretty sure.
I'll accept that. I'll accept that.
I know it was you. My memory just ain't that good. I know it was you.
It was. I said something about it. I can't remember what it was.
As soon as they brought up the Constitution and the term limits and all that and what they couldn't do, I said, I'm going to eat them up. Because this is the problem within America. They try to say, well, the enslaved African and everything he went through, it's not a big deal. There was slavery everywhere. No, don't try to justify the most horrendous type of slavery in world history. Don't do that to me, because I know better. You can run that bullshit on somebody who doesn't know their blackness, okay? But you can't run that game on me. You show me a group of people where they had their names taken from them. We don't have our African names, Mr. Evans, okay? Now, all them other slaves and all them other places, they didn't have their names taken from them. They weren't raped, okay? They didn't have their culture removed from them. There weren't laws put in place to keep other slaves from learning how to read and write. But the enslaved African, Listen to this. Were you a slave? No, I'm a descendant of the enslaved African. I know my history, Mr. Evans.
That's a crazy. That's a crazy lie to throw out there. That's
Yeah,
a crazy
I got
lie.
to get the hand real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
How do you know better? Were you a slave? No, I can read.
Wow.
This guy doesn't read. See, he's trying to justify that the slavery in America was no different than any other type of slavery. He's an absolute lie, and the truth cannot be found in him, Mr. Mike K. Evans or M.K. Evans. He's a liar.
And so I've posted the link. I posted the link in the chat.
Bring him on. Let's get him up on.
Marquis, if you want to hop up and state your opinion on it, by all means, hit the link, and you are more than welcome to come on, brother.
His ass ain't coming. Or it could be a girl.
No, it's a guy. It's a guy.
It could be a girl.
Yeah, we graduated high school together.
Oh, okay. Well, get his ass up on here.
Yeah, he's more than welcome to join.
Because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So, but the birthright citizenship thing, that they will decide maybe in October, or maybe they'll try to push it off to next. They'll probably try to push it off as far as possible. But I can guarantee you, Justice Thomas and Justice Alito, they want to overturn it. They want to clarify what birthright citizenship is.
Yes.
But common sense tells you can't go to a country legally, pop out a kid, and then a kid gets citizenship. That's ridiculous. That's the dumbest ass argument the Democrats.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this then. When service members are in Germany, right, and they have a child on German soil, and they come back, does that child have citizenship or right to citizenship in Germany or France? Or wherever, some part of Europe.
I think the military has an exception. If you're over there with your spouse, hold on. Wait a minute. If you're a military man, you marry a foreigner and you have a child in that continent, in that country, that child still gets U.S. citizenship. Now, can that child also apply for dual citizenship? I think they can. And
it doesn't have to be a foreigner. So even if both parents are from America and they have a child in Germany, I'll just use Germany. It's a U.S. citizen. They also have they have dual citizenship.
I think they have to apply. That's one of the.
They don't have to apply for it. I
don't believe that. I have a friend that was. God, was she born?
My ex has a sister.
Okay.
My ex has a sister that was born in Germany, and I think up until the age of 18, before she had dual citizenship, and then she had to actually claim which one she wanted to take on.
Well, I tell you what, tell Mr. Evans, tell Mr. Evans that I'm nobody's boy. See, that's the first thing. See, I'm a grown black man. I'm nobody's boy. So if he wants to come on here and show me that he's a real man and not just someone that's typing comments trying to get reactions, my point is this: don't try to ever compare the enslaved African slavery to no one else's, because you can't. And I don't care how you try to diminish it. I don't care how much you say that slavery happened throughout the entire world. Yeah, the Egyptians had slaves. Black folks had slaves, other slaves. Black folks, the Black Egyptians had slaves who were Black. It was not based on superiority. It was based off, I got the power, but it wasn't based off of racial superiority. So I don't care what he says. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Hey, Marquis, it's been a minute, man. Good to see you.
My man, James. How have you been?
Oh, is this Mr. Mike K. Evans?
K. Evans, yeah. I'm about to be living a dream like you, bro. Look.
All right. I thought he was Caucasian for a second. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Evans. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, I missed it. Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
No, I was just messing with James. Now, on to your point. Okay. I didn't say that we didn't experience tragedy, heartache, and how can I put this? Destruction of our peoples as we were. Okay. But what I meant is slavery was bad for anybody who was in it, no matter where you were at. I can't tell you what was going on in the Middle East because I wasn't there with them as they were experiencing the heartache they went through from our African country who went over that way. Nor can I say the same thing for the whites who were enslaved by Vikings who got their entire villages destroyed and there's no fucking evidence of it. Slavery is bad no matter where you go. And whether you were your wife was the first rights of a lord because he felt fucking ticklish and wanted to bang her before you got the opportunity to it, to you are universally born to a poor caste system in India and you're never going to come up unless you leave the country, which is still going on to this day.
Correct.
You know, I hate to say it, but when you're on the bottom, it sucks regardless.
Mr. Evans, you are factually correct, but you're factually incomplete. And I'm gonna steal that from Mr. Stephen A. Smith from TV. And I'm not his biggest fan. I'm not his biggest enemy. Let me tell you the difference. When Europeans came and enslaved Africans, some Africans were sold by other Africans and some they just grabbed. When they did that, that was based off the idea that they were racially superior. No other type of slavery in the history of this world was based off of racial superiority.
I disagree with you on that. I disagree wholeheartedly. It's based off of superiority from the beginning. They dehumanize the people they're going to take, like we do it now. When we have an enemy, and James can speak on this, when you have an enemy, the first thing they tell you is they're animals, they're trash, they're beneath people, don't worry about them. That thinking is not just
no. There's a difference. There's a difference because you cannot show me. Hold on a second. In India, they have a caste system.
Yep.
But in India, you don't have a picture of quote white being superior to the other colors. You don't have that. But see, Christianity in Europe is based off this idea in the Vatican, the Sistine Chapel. When you have God and the angels and Jesus as being portrayed and the prophets as being white, now when you go to enslave, your whole mindset is a lot different. Again,
that's anywhere you go, though. That's anywhere you go. If you go to Asia, they're going to have their own little Asian Jesus or Buddha or whatever. Well, in fact, let's look at Buddha. Look at Chinese Buddha, and then look at India and Thailand Buddha. Those are two different people who will be the same person. And it's like, why is he looking more Asian and white on this one versus this skinny dude in this one? Because that's the people's interpretation.
It's all based off
that's based off those people's interpretation.
Based off the European mindset that white's better than everybody else.
That is not the case with China. That's not the case with China.
Yes, it was. Because hold on, wait a minute.
No, that was not, sir. No, that was not. You were trying to give them more power than what they're worth.
Mr. Evans,
you were giving them more power than what they're worth.
Mr. Evans, you must have missed the opium wars when the Brits was kicking the Chinese ass, getting them strung out on opium. You must have missed that shit.
You must have missed when they were kicking their own asses, which made them vulnerable to those opium wars. They were warring up into the Mao era. Until Mao took over, China was constantly boxing with itself like Europe is constantly boxing with itself. That's why they're never going to be like united as us. Matter of fact, we're the only country in the world that's as united as we are because we're not constantly boxing with each other in the States. Everybody else, Europe, China, South America, all them fucking places, they're always boxing unnecessarily so while we over here just fist fighting, pilly paddling, talking shit. But it's just like we ain't throwing rockets like Russia and Ukraine. People next door.
I don't think that's a fair. I don't think that's a fair comparison. I see where you're going with it. America and China was good, but then you started comparing America, the country, to continents that have multiple countries within it. But I see what you're doing. I get what you're doing. I think China was China was better because they were a country that were at war with each other. Correct. With the different fractions.
But what unified them though?
It was Mao.
And I said the reason why they are what they are today because they were unified. I'm going to say they were unified in general, even though it can be if you think communism is good or bad, it's whatever. But they're unified and they have their own state-run government type thing too. Yeah. And they're crushing. What's the Muslim Chinese people called? The Uyghur?
The Hmong? Or not the Hmong?
Not the Hmong. It's something with a U.
The Uyghurs?
Yeah.
Wiggers.
Yeah, I'm just that name just doesn't fit with
me. That name kills me. That's why I ain't remember.
I'm
all too close. Too close.
Exactly.
It's right there.
It's on the line. But it's like Kevin Durant 3 when he was with the Nets. It's right on the line.
You just be like, but that's beside the point. We have conflict, and when you have a unified people, no matter where you go, they're gonna make God look like what they want God to look like. And as I said, what the white people did was right. I don't even call it. I'm gonna say the Europeans. What the Europeans did was right.
Correct.
And what happened in Africa wasn't right or wrong either. But I will say slavery is based off of superiority. No matter what reason you give for it.
No, wait a minute. Because you've given me the respect to come on. Because usually when I call somebody out, they ask don't come on, but you came on. So now let me slow my roll. Let me change my tone. First of all the enslaved Africans, when they came to America, their names were taken from them. Nowhere in world history can you show me where a slave's name, listen to this, their names are taken from them, their culture was taken from them, and then the ones who got through off board, who didn't make it to America, all that is recorded off the insurance, but they won't tell us. That's that part. Yeah. What was the other part I wanted to say really quickly? Oh my gosh. The name, the culture,
the language, the religion.
The religion, and the fact that you had to include us.
I'm on something right now.
Into the Constitution as amendments. You had to include us. Show me a country where they had a civil war because one said, we're going to take all this free labor and use it to our benefit.
Is that Kenyette?
That must be his wife. That must be his wife.
Stop it.
Hey, look. That must be his. You know what? That must be his wife. That's all I can say. That must be his wife. Okay.
I'm leaving.
You know what? Now I'm starting. Well, hold on, Mr. Mike K. Evans. Now I'm starting to wonder. Did you come on this on your own accord? Did your wife say, "Get your ass on there and sit his ass"? I'm gonna roll with that.
I had a whole thing in my mind. It's all gone now.
That's what happened.
And it's just completely out the door. So yeah, you're right. I just take that L.
My thing is, you know what, Mr. Evans, when you come on and you articulate, I can respect that. Unfortunately, when we have people who are European American, white folks, and Caucasians, they try to act like the slavery that they did was so ordinary. There was no different than any other type of slavery in the history of the earth, and that's an absolute lie. And they tried to pervert that. Oh, here's what I want to say to you, Mr. Evans, real quick, and then I'll let y'all talk. They tell us they took our religion called Christianity, they perverted it, and then they tried to say you should honor your master. But it tells you in the Old Testament in Deuteronomy 15 that in the 7th year you let your slaves go free unless they say they want to stay with you. But that didn't happen. And that's why they refuse to acknowledge that we are the original Hebrews. So they took our religion, Christianity. The Middle East took the Islam when that was started by black folks too, Muhammad. So every time black folks restart the whole world, we are the whole color scheme. We are all the languages. We're the ones who traveled all over the earth, but we get no credit for it. No. So they turn around and they diminish us to the lowest degree possible. I'll stop there.
Like I say, I'm not gonna sit here and support when people go like, "Oh, well, slavery wasn't that bad. You all got, X, Y, and Z." It's like, did you forget that you all had slaves? You all were slaves too. Like, was it not that bad when you went through it? Was it all twigs and was it all berries and fruit when you got, your wife got done up or you got fucking in prison? Like I said, everybody was at the bottom at one point. We all were at the bottom at one point. So how people forget where they come from is beyond me. Especially when people go, "Well, it wasn't that bad." It's like
it's an easy thing
that's a bit much.
It's an easy thing for people to God damn it, we gotta get great topic. American slavery versus global slavery. Marquis, since you own her, you gotta stay now.
The phone is charging now, and I'm actually in my chair while I would normally be doing something else, so I'm here for the long run.
Good. Let me figure out where I was again. I wanted to hear that.
Talking about the birthright citizenship.
Oh, not yet. That's going to come up in a second. But before we get there, I wanted to highlight the feds versus Los Angeles in court. The administration is absolutely suing Los Angeles, essentially saying that they are impeding the federal government's ability to do their job, ICE agents, when it comes to deportation. And so because they're doing that, they're in court and they're they're trying to process. I'm trying to remember what their end state is. Deuce, do you remember what the end state is outside of allowing ICE agents to come in and deport people?
Can we be honest? Can we talk about
Yeah.
why California is fighting them for real?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's what I brought up earlier with
Whoa,
the
whoa, 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 whoa.
thing.
Hold on. Here's the rule though.
Oh.
You can't mention Gavin Newsom within the first 2 minutes of you talking about it.
I had to do with that. They had to do with that because it was on before he even got into office.
All right, let's do it.
It's the same thing with the 3/5 thing with the South. Because how many people have been leaving California since 2020? How much money has been leaving that state since 2020?
A lot of older money has begun to move.
Now, and then Hollywood's leaving because Hollywood's doing what it's doing. Musk left. The big computer companies are going to Washington,
Oracle,
and Austin, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now they're losing political power.
Only
way to fill those ranks was that.
Well, not to interrupt you, Marquise. When people make that argument, California is just like its own country. It's still the fourth largest economy on earth. So even with Elon Musk and all these big shots leaving, California hasn't lost a step.
No, they will. No, it's coming. You just don't see it yet because, like I said, me and James live there. It's coming.
I live there. I live here now.
Yeah,
okay, then I hate to say it, but you're a little biased. The time is coming, sir. Hollywood.
Wait a minute. I'm not pro-California. I'm pro-labor in California, but I'm not pro-California. I'm not pro-Democrat. I'm an independent. I don't belong to no political party.
But at the end of the day, you are losing money, and you're losing people at an alarming rate. And the only way to fill that hole.
No, they said they've been saying that for the last 15, 20 years since I've been here.
You just lost electoral college votes in the last election, and before that, you lost Senate seats.
Here's the question.
You can't lose Senate seats. No,
hold on.
Representative seats.
Congress. So here's the question that I have. Of the 83 billionaires that are in America, how many of them live in California?
I'll look it up right now.
Okay, because that accounts for a lot.
Wait. How many of them have multiple residents?
Well, I know that I have multiple residents, but
because I can have a house in California, but I live in Florida.
Right, and I get that because President Trump does that in Florida and New York. But the question is, if when we're looking at how many actually live in California, how many actually also claim residency in California?
So this is what AI is saying.
I don't think you can really get that number because they're not going to tell you they're not going to tell you I live in California, but I do my taxes in New Mexico.
So this is what AI is saying. If you trust AI on this particular subject matter, California has more billionaires than any other U.S. state, with a significant concentration in the tech and entertainment industries.
Mm-hmm.
So
how many of them have dual? I'm not gonna say dual citizenship because
residents.
Yeah.
So billionaires in California with dual residences. You want me to ask that question?
And then
I do.
And then I know you're gonna be able to find out on AI. Who runs their money through the Caymans?
Well, that won't pop up in AI.
No.
That won't. I looked at it before.
And by the way, baby, if I sir, with the glasses, if San Diego hadn't changed, you'd be talking to me right now. I would have never left that state if it wasn't for the way it turned out.
Oh man,
it got ridiculous in like 2017, sir. When they voted to pay for plastic bags, I had to get out of Dodge.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But listen to this, because now, because I don't support either party. Both parties run this good con game on trying to scare people into believing that the other party is going to kill the country. They've been saying this about California and how it runs itself for years. Now, when Jerry Brown was the governor on his second go-round, they weren't saying that because he was a real conservative Democrat. But then once he got out of there and he had that big ass, what was it, $25 to $50 billion in surplus, billion in a rainy day fund. And then as soon as Gavin Newsom gets up in there, it all kind of ran downhill. Now, I say that because it's going to come up in his presidential election run. But have I been able to tell you, Mr. Marquis, I've seen the financial statements for these state agencies that tell you for sure that we're in a budget deficit? No. I'm only telling you what I've been told and what I read. And so if you say, well, I don't like the sources you're reading, well, then you win the argument.
So here's the question then. Outside of the 83 billionaires that are in the States, and 6 of them, you said it was 6 of them that are in California, at least?
No, I said California has the most
It's
billionaires.
the biggest population. Okay, so again, going back to the actual topic, the prompt, the feds versus LA, what is the end state? And the reason why I'm asking is because if you have a surplus of billionaires there, it's money is what actually controls our courts, right? It's not being right. It's not being just. It's not being fair. It's money that's going to control the courts. And if the feds are going to be pushing something in California that is going to detach from the bottom line, especially in the LA area, how likely are they to actually win these cases in LA?
No, that's not.
Like I said, the whole point was they're losing people, and California's going to fight that because that's power they're losing.
No. This. Hold on. I want you to reverse roles for a second.
Sure.
When they tried to integrate the schools, they had to send. Oh God, they had to send the National Guard Army in Arkansas to help those girls go to school. And Arkansas, because Arkansas wasn't going to comply with the law of the land. So when ICE comes to your state and says, "Hey, we're grabbing people who are here illegally," now we'll try to grab the criminals first, but anybody else that's here illegally, we're grabbing them too, because we have to make the numbers for President Trump, because that's what the voters that put him in office wanted. So they got to grab everybody. If they grab 100 people and 2 were grabbed illegally, they say, "Oh well, we're still getting a 98% winning percentage." LA says we're a sanctuary city. We ain't helping your ass. We're not going to use none of our law enforcement to help you.
Right.
So the federal government sends the ICE down to enforce federal law, and you say, "Well, that's on you. We don't got nothing to do with that." If this was on the other foot, like it was in the 60s, and the Republicans or the people in the southern states were like, "We don't care about federal law. We're gonna keep our schools segregated now, yesterday, today, and tomorrow." You would have had the Democrats, the liberal Democrats would have had a hissy fit. But now, because these people who are here illegally, you want them to get amnesty so you can get their votes. Okay, I respect the game.
But they can't vote.
Not yet, because they haven't got amnesty yet.
It's like, they become naturalized citizens.
So, okay, so you come here illegally, and you say, "Well, I'm here illegally, even though I'm being exploited, it doesn't matter." So Trump says, "Well, I'm a little bit prejudiced." Okay, cool. And I don't really care for you because I don't really hire too many Marias. So I'm going to get your ass up out of here. Now, your cousin, who's part of the gang, his ass got to go first. And then I'm going to come and get you, Maria. Oh, that child that you had is getting free U.S. citizenship? Oh, that's some bullshit. That's some bullshit. What do you mean he got birthright citizenship? That's us for the black folks we enslaved years ago. I wish we could have sent them all back to Africa, but we couldn't. We tried. We wanted to.
They sent some of us back, and I wish. Anyway, that's another story for another time.
Yeah, I've been to Africa. I've been to Africa on both coasts. I'm gonna pass on that one.
So LA, and I'm gonna tell you another reason why.
But hold on to that one. Hold on to that one. Deuce, you were about to say something. I saw you about to say something. Where were you at with that? Because this was actually your topic, and I'm trying to.
I forgot now. I'm listening to the pipeline of illegal immigrant to voter, and then what MK brought up, I never thought about that. Why they're fighting it? It's a pathway to voting, to keeping their electoral votes, to keeping their but their numbers in the federal government.
I tell you, plus they gonna get all that welfare money from it too. If they become citizens, they're gonna rate the Medicaid and the Medicare, which will all go into California's fund as well.
Hold on, listen to this. So they say Trump's racist or prejudiced. Okay, he's probably a little bit of both. All right, but he's not full. He's not full prejudice. He's not full racist. The black woman down in Georgia, Bonnie Willis, tried to run his ass down. Okay, the black woman in New York, Attorney General Tisha James, tried to run his head off. Then Alvin Bragg in the Southern District tried to run his ass off. And then you had another black woman, federal judge in D.C., Chudakan. Now she was smooth. She was articulate. She was going to take his head off too, but she was going to do it the right way. So he gets back in office and say, "Oh, you black women try to run my ass. I'm going to try to run your asses out of jobs." And all you other black folks, all that DEI shit, I'm getting that shit up out of here. Now I'm going to get all these illegal immigrants. What? There's a black woman in LA. She's the mayor. A black woman? Send the troops in. He can't stand black folks.
But I can understand and I can entertain somewhat of what y'all are saying, the pipeline to voting, but that's not what's happening and that's not what's happened, right? So to
It's happened before with
do
Bush. When Bush
to
did
do
the naturalization, that's Bush. Was it W? I
it was
believe
W. It was
Jason
W.
Bush.
Yeah.
Bush. Yeah, and they naturalized a bunch of citizens, which put California numbers really up.
Right. But that's not where we are right now because they haven't even been able to get to a point of getting legit citizenship. And I
Well,
doubt if
they're
it's
starting
going
that.
to
That's why he
happen.
brought all those numbers in with not Obama, but Obama had the Dreamers Act, and then Biden brought in a gang of people, which nobody can say here and say they didn't do it. We saw that one on film, on TV. They was in Chicago, upsetting black folks, and New
No,
York.
I can't agree with that. I can't agree with that because that
That's what
wasn't
they put
Biden
them
that
in
brought
with.
them in. That was the Texas governor that sent them up there.
No,
Right?
not that part. Not that part. I said
Oh,
they
okay.
brought them in, and they got sent to those places too. So I
You
said they
talking
came
about
in, they
are you
came in
talking
through
about
the
the
Texas, and then like I said they got sent to New York and Martha's Vineyard and fucking Chicago. Thank you, Texas. Thank you, Florida governors, and put them on blast. And it was okay. And then everybody was like, okay, it was an issue. Then it was an issue. Then it wasn't an issue. Then it was an issue when you saw the mayors of New York and Chicago complain about it. And it was
but
like,
it's,
now we
it's,
have those people here though. And now those
I
people are
mean,
here. If they get citizenship through the next president after Trump, let's say it's Kamala Harris, crossing my fingers there. And then she
that's
gets
the
it's a
thing.
joke, it's a joke, it's a joke, it's not serious. And I was like, and she and they give them citizenship. That's a lot of boon to places like California,
So
Texas,
let's
and
take
Florida.
everything, and I'll take everything that y'all are saying into consideration. The question then, at this point, then becomes, well, then why didn't Biden do it? Why didn't President Obama do it? Why didn't Clinton do it? Because they all had the same ability to chase down the exact same thing, the pipelines that y'all are talking about and describing, but none of them did that.
No, because they say this is what they report from both the Democrats. Well, Democrats won't report it, but from the Republicans that President Obama did the most deportations of any president in US history.
Deporter in chief. Yep.
But yet he did it so smoothly and so well. He had to do it smoothly because if he had did anything wrong, he would have gotten impeached.
No, the news covered.
Yeah, but you got to add.
The news
okay, once again,
covered.
We got to add context to that, though. We got to add context to that. Okay, when Obama was in office, America was a destination location. People wanted to flock here. We had record numbers crossing that, whatever the border is down there, the little line, chalk line, whatever it is. So the majority of Obama's deportations were coming from the places in the U.S. where you can get in at, right? Trump trying to meet that number. People aren't coming here in droves anymore, right? They'll be dumb to do that. So now that's why he's going inside the U.S. to find people who haven't done anything. I was in Hawaii.
Except across the border illegally.
Did they?
That's a simple matter, though. It's not a criminal thing. All right, here's a case. Hold on, wait. Hear this out.
That's true.
I was in Hawaii. This is what happened. A man that had been living here 40 plus years in the military, served honorably, got a Purple Heart from Asia somewhere, illegal. They came and deported him. Had PTSD, Purple Heart. I don't care. Somebody argued that he got it during the Desert Storm, not a real war. I don't care where you were. You get a Purple Heart, you sacrifice a piece of your body to protect somebody else. So that's some BS. And that came from a fellow service member I was really heated about. He did all this stuff in service of his country. And when America says, we done with you, return to sender. So he got here illegally. We used him just to send them back.
Now,
As well.
I have a question about that. I do have a question about that. You said he was in the military. He served. He self-deported to South Korea after being ordered by the federal immigration officials. Okay. My question for that is, if you were into that time frame, why didn't he go for his citizenship? And I know I pushed all my people who were suspect into getting citizenship. I've been through that little process in San Diego so many times. They knew my face, and I took my ex-wife, my brother-in-law, my mother-in-law, all to get their citizenship. So I
How
was
long
like,
did it actually?
how did he not do the same thing? And by the way, we did have two people from the Jamaica, whatever they were from. They got quietly pulled to the side, and they kind of got sent back home because they had some fraudulent paperwork.
Mm.
And
And
that
so
was
there's
during the Obama time.
okay. And so,
So I
so
was like,
there's another case happening right now as well, and this is going back to the feds versus Los Angeles, and then we'll push forward in a second. But there are three brothers who are Marines, and their
I saw
father,
that one. I saw that one. Yeah.
yeah,
And what happened?
their father is detained at this point.
Yeah, because
Oh,
he's illegal. And he had been there for like, well, their entire lives.
Yeah,
And he never got naturalized, never went for his stuff either. And then he got caught up in the hurricane.
and
A lot
let
of
me
these people get caught up
so
in the hurricane.
yeah, let me state this. I do agree with if you've been here for an extent. Now, let me qualify this first.
okay.
Let me qualify
Hold
this
on. Let's
because
go.
I'm not simply talking about our brothers and sisters that are coming across the border. I'm talking about these motherfuckers whose visas has expired also, right? So I just want to encapsulate everything and everybody in this because a lot of the times the conversation is simply shifted to the border crossings when the biggest actual undocumented folks are the folks who have allowed their visas to go expired, right? So the question, what I wanted to say is if it's hard for me to fight against the deportation stuff outside of it being a human outside of a humanistic fashion, right? Because I want people to be able to come here. I want people to be able to live their best dream. I want people to be able to be successful somewhere else. Unfortunately, and this goes back to Deuce's stance as well, although it's a civil crime or a civil matter, it's still a matter and an issue. And if you've been here for a prolonged amount of time and you haven't gone to have your case heard, right? And that's the part where I would hope the administration would pause. People who have gotten their names on the docket to get their citizenship, that's the part that's being missed. That's the part that I think needs to be paused out instead of just detaining everybody and having chaos ensue and then shipping people back out.
I
What you got?
disagree with you on
Let
one
me raise my
point.
hand here.
After him, I have disagreement on one point. Not a bad thing. Something I agree with you with that should have been fixed.
Let me write this down while you talk.
I think Congress should have fucking streamlined that thing since we were children.
I can agree with you.
Back when Biden had a full head of hair and Obama wasn't in office. Like, y'all knew there's been a problem for
Decades,
50
decades.
years?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we're trying. I'm like, you ain't trying, bro. Like, if y'all really want to streamline this shit, it can be done. And y'all just lollygagging. And what you really want, you want slave labor. And you want people to come do all the work that you goes, well, my kid ain't gonna do this. He gonna go to college. She gonna go to college. She gonna be a CEO. Your kid can barely tie his shoe. He needs to be out there picking them tomatoes. He needs to be out there helping manage some kids. I'm sorry. I'm being real with you. He goes, oh, there goes to the military and fight the military. No, homie. I'd rather take that dude who joined so he can get his citizenship, who's fighting for it, versus the dude who's a bum. He just called me because I got nothing else going on right now. Well, granted, the illegal can be doing the same thing because if ain't shit going on in Mexico or or Africa or the Middle East, ain't shit going on, right? So you gotta find you a job somewhere.
No, you're right. You're right, but kind of like in line with that, right? When you think about the narratives, right? He came in, first thing we talked about Roe versus Wade being overturned. Why was that overturned?
We had low birth rates.
Low goddamn birth rates, okay? Population growth, right? So if the American population is dwindling, let's just go on that one narrative there.
Just a question. Let me I'm sorry, not mean to take you off your square. I just need to ask this. When you say we, right? Who is the we that you're talking about with low birth rates?
You stole.
Okay, all right, go ahead. Go ahead. I was okay. My bad. No.
People who was overused.
No. Yeah, keep going. I'm asking you to clarify because I don't
know the we. The we is
Are
for
you
a
talking
certain
about Brittany or
demographic
Becky?
group. But
Who was over
Hold on a
using
second.
racist?
Wait a minute. Who are the people who had the low birth rates? I want to know.
As you see, I told you, I'm asking a
Who are
legit
they?
question.
First of all,
so I
it's a
think it was
world issue
overturned for a
right now.
specific demographic.
But right now in this
Not
country,
us.
the low birth rate is we don't have a low birth rate because we use abortion too much. But number 2 behind us is right there is Becky and Brad.
Yes.
Okay.
Overuse the fuck out that service.
Go ahead.
Because
Go
you know
ahead.
why? I don't want to have responsibility. Hey, just kill this kid. Oh, I gotta worry about my job so I can become a CEO of a company. I'm gonna just kill this kid and be irresponsible.
So, and that ties back to a point that Rich was saying that Trump's not fully raped. The guy's full on. Here's the thing: look at the narrative, man. You peel back the layers and you look at it, it's right in our faces. We have a dwindling population growth. We're falling below replacement rate, right?
Way
To
below.
replace Americans, quickest thing to do would be what MK said: streamline the route from illegal to citizen. Now you build Americans, but that's not what they really want. They want to replace their race. That's why they're kicking out everyone who can't pass the paper bag test, and why while they're kicking illegals out, they're bringing in other immigrants that can beat the paper bag test.
South Africans.
So, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. I've been quiet for a while. Number one, we've only saw the 50 white South African farmers came in. That was a media stunt. Just 50 that we know of.
A media stunt for what? For what end?
I think they
50 white South Africaners were brought in. They had the picture. They came on the tarmac and all that. They said they were being discriminated against by the black South Africans.
Yeah,
no,
that's bullshit.
by the Africans. By the Africans. Just call it what they are. By the Africans. And the
right.
Afrikaners were being discriminated against by the Africans. Goes,
you're absolutely
it is what it is, gents. It's their home turf.
So check this out. Remember when Trump first got back in office on the second term here? And he said, I need everybody to self-deport. And people laughed their ass off. He said, we ain't self-deport nowhere. And he said, okay, that's cool. You don't want to self-deport? And I'm going to pay you. I think he said, was he going to pay him to leave actually?
Yeah, but that came second. That option opened up a month and a half, 2 months ago. That's still
it's been half a year, James. So much has happened. Who can keep track?
But wait a minute. So when he first got back in office, he said, I want people who are here illegally to self-deport. And they all laughed. Okay? Now, when Deuce says, well, if you come over here illegally, it's just a civil matter. Really? So you're just going to minimize a civil matter versus a criminal matter? Really? Because if I'm Sean Puffy Combs and I know all these civil suits are coming from all my fucking bro, all my money. So you act like a civil matter is not a big deal. Okay.
Hold on. No. Don't twist up the words. I ain't saying that.
You said a civil matter. You said it's just a civil matter. That's what you said. What's going on, Oscar?
Give me a second, Oscar. Give me a second.
He was very dismissive over a civil matter, but if I ask O.J. Simpson about a civil matter, he has a different opinion.
Oh, hold on. I'm not saying civil matters don't hurt. Okay, my point was saying civil matter. There's a route to handle civil matters. Let me clarify my point. I'm not saying, right, they're both painful. You take my money, I'm going to cry. You know what I'm saying? There's a route to handling civil matters is what I'm saying. And as we had an episode on it, that route has been taken away from these folks.
Yeah.
It's a snatch and grab. They're playing Pokemon Go out here, bro. Got to catch them all.
Got to catch them all.
Here's your other problem. When you talk about, they said, the Republicans say that Biden just let them all come across the border illegally. Here's the problem with this. When Biden got elected, took office in 21, we were all pretty confident that he had his mental facilities, mental faculties. But at some point between 2021 up to 24, it went downhill. And nobody knows for sure when he lost it all because he got old. Nobody knows. So when we say, hey, all these people came over to the country legally and he was just letting them in, we don't know if it was really him or somebody else. And he took credit for it.
I'm not going to blame Biden. I'm going to just say his administration like I do for most of these people. I don't think the presidents are at every bit of everything because it's the reason why their hair go gray. You know what I'm saying, bro? You getting the life sucked out of you. You can't make fucking 35% of people happy, so it's gonna drive you kind of out of it. So I'm not gonna just say Biden. I'm gonna say it's administration.
Fair.
And like I said, some states go, we need some people because we're losing juice. And it was like, all right, you gonna owe me on the back end though. And some people they're gonna get their back end payments. California's gonna be one of them. And it's especially because, like I said, a lot of stuff is leaving California. I know you're there. What part are you in?
Sacramento, capital.
Oh, you in Sac. Nice. But I'm saying, like, they're losing a lot of the tech is also, if you haven't been paying attention, has been starting to leave and go to Washington and Austin and other places. And then Hollywood is on bare bones at this point, bro. Between AI and doing stuff overseas and cheaper and doing it in Georgia and other places, it's really hurting. And they just they had a strike in 23, and now they don't even have the writing staff they used to have because they're not paying people anything. And it's like, I gotta do something. Not you per se, or California, I'm saying, but a lot of things have to come to the suits. Like, something has to give.
So when I heard that argument back in 2012, 2013, there was a woman in the office. She was a Republican, and she said, this economy is going to go downhill. All the rich people are going to leave. And I said, no, that's a scare tactic.
They did after, I know exactly what you're talking about. They did after Obama got in office when they put that tax on millionaires, or was it billionaires in 2008?
Right. But I'm saying in 2012, 2013, she was saying, Richard, the economy in California is going to go downhill and all the rich people are going to leave. And I said, no, when you have the fourth largest economy on earth, okay, the fourth largest on earth in one state, it's to the national interest of the country. You cannot let California fall. You cannot let California fall. Period.
Can we though? Like, everything that California can do, you can do a lot of the places. Most things you can do in California, you can do other places. Tech, entertainment, and what else they really offer that other states.
Well, no, wait, hold on. You're right, but Hollywood has legacy. Silicon Valley has legacy. San Francisco has legacy. But more importantly, the part that no one talks about is the Central Valley. The largest agriculture system in America is in California. So
now that's also, they can't leave.
You cannot allow
surfing. Henry said.
This dude said surfing.
I was reading the comment off of Insta.
This man said surfing. I'm out of here.
So, you guys just mentioned the point though. I never thought about it this way. All right, so why are all those tech companies, Oracle, Apple, why are they looking to open up second headquarters, as they say, in other states? What's the biggest thing they cry about?
The taxes.
The taxes.
Okay.
So we as a people say, tax our billionaires, millionaires more. The counter argument is they're gonna run.
They do it in Europe too. Yeah.
So now this is happening in real life because true. But if California drops some of those taxes, man, some of those companies would stay.
Listen, they can be taxed on.
Some of the taxes.
tax billionaires. Fuck them. Anyway, sorry, my bad.
Well, they might the same thing. They might leave, man. Like Oracle, Apple, Tesla. Well, Tesla's a whole. Elon. You can't put Elon as a whole another category about.
If we were smart,
the tech bubble is starting to burst as well because now we're using AI and they're using overseas people to do half their work. Like half of Google is Indians. So is Sacramento. What's that tech firm is in San Diego? They make microchips and shit. It's in San Diego. I can't think of the name of it.
AMD or Intel. Nah.
Yeah, it's something bigger than that. But guess what it is? Mostly Indians.
Yeah. So hold on. Now that's a great point. Now in the 90s when this was a Democrat president, Clinton did that NAFTA. That's when America lost its working class because all the unions were against that, and I'm pro-union. So when President Clinton did that, along with the 3 strikes and all that other crazy stuff that President Biden tried to make up for when he got into presidency about all that stuff, that's when America really lost itself. Because when you got rid of all your manufacturing jobs, you said, well, we're going to replace those jobs with computer jobs, but you knew you were lying. And then on top of that, you said, well, some of those jobs are so advanced that we have to go across to India. Now this is where my
This was always weird to me.
This is where my prejudice comes in. First of all, I ain't no fool. And when enough black folks, Mexicans, Asians, and white folks in this country, and anybody else that's in this country, oh, we can get it done. I believe in the American way. I'm not just saying that.
It's not that we can't, man. It's the infrastructure and the timeline. And the initial cost it would take to do that.
I don't want to hear about
Apple cultivated India for 15 years before they moved that factory from China to India.
Deuce, don't tell me about no freaking initial cost when you can put billions upon billions. No, hold on a second. When you can put billions upon billions and send it to Iraq to rebuild Iraq,
you can put
billions upon billions to rebuild this American
to a company's checkbook.
Again, if you can send hundreds of billions to our
country.
I'm calling a quick timeout. We got Oscar. He's driving, and he's currently in California right now too. So, what you got, Oscar?
What's up, guys? How's it going?
You got it, my brother.
Just listening to the conversation. Yeah, I mean, it's the topic is what the denaturalization. Is that what we're talking about?
We might as well.
I don't know.
We were talking about the why behind the administration versus.
Okay, yeah. I have my opinions with that. I'm one of the belief if on one side of the political spectrum we have the whole belief of don't tread on me, don't have government overreach, don't have all this other stuff. What I'm constantly seeing is excuses for constant overreach, excuses for constant trying to like override what states want to do. If we really believe in states' rights, let's stay 100% to state rights. Like let Texas do Texas, let California be California, let New York be New York, and just play it that way. I feel like we spend too much time trying to argue issues in states or constituency. I mean, in counties that we're not even constituents in. Why are we spending our energy on something that doesn't even affect us, really? I mean, it may affect us in terms of like morale with where things are going and how things are shifting, depending on what side of the aisle you sit on. But the reality is, let's just focus on our communities. Let's just focus on our own states, in our own counties, in our own cities, and stop worrying so much about what happens in Texas or Louisiana, Alabama, like whatever it is, unless it's somewhere where you live.
But Oscar, hold on, Oscar, wait a minute. This is where it gets tricky. Because federal law trumps state law. And as a black man, they had to use federal law to quote free the slaves and blah 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 blah. Here's where it gets tricky. If you say, well, hey, let the states enforce the laws. Well, states can't enforce federal laws. So when it comes to the ICE, California can't enforce a federal law.
Correct.
So you can't. So when people say, well, hey, let's enforce these laws, but we're not going to enforce these laws. Well, then what you need laws for?
Yeah.
And I mean, add on to what he said real quick, Oscar. You're right. For certain things, like you all mentioned abortion earlier, and the Roe v. Wade thing, rights. When it comes to what we said earlier, because you weren't here, when you have this amount of population being added to their population, which can be turned to national citizens later, that's voting power and political power as well, which can affect us as a nation.
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing, and it's something I mentioned in one of the last episodes I was in, is so right now the biggest countries that we have a lot of immigration from are Venezuela. So we got a lot of Venezuelan Colombians that came during that whole wave of folks that were given asylum.
And the coffee's been great.
Yeah, and the funny part about it is if they're, here's the cop out here, if they're really worried about adding to the liberal voter base, those people aren't liberals. Venezuelans, when they come to the United States, just like Cubans, they vote conservative because they live in countries that have liberal tyranny. So when they come here,
will be changed though. And that's another thing.
But that's true of anybody. I can have kids, and my kids can vote completely opposite from what I believe.
Yeah,
they just go off to school or move somewhere else or have a girlfriend, and they change.
I do believe you. I agree with you on that one. But when you go to some of these California, what part of California you in by chance?
Northern California, Silicon Valley.
So you over here by freaking Sacramento? Y'all probably just down the street from each other. It's just that some of these schools are preaching a certain way. Not all schools, I will mind you, because me and James went to the same school, and our school wasn't like that. what some of these schools are preaching a certain way, and you're getting these same kind of children who's voting the same kind of way. And it's just
Mhm.
like you look at what happened to New York with that one guy who won a Democratic nomination.
Mhm.
You know, he's a socialist, and
Yeah,
only mostly college educated people voted for him, not the
Yeah,
Joe Bag of Donuts and Maria
sure,
Perez's.
sure,
So
sure,
they're
sure. But
going to
here's
vote for that kind of stuff
but
versus,
here's
yeah,
here's one of my biggest beliefs. People deserve the people that they vote in, right?
agree with you.
Yeah, but
You
we
know
don't
what?
Pe-
all. But we should all have to suffer for some people's
but
votes.
but but but
I was
but here's
riding with you. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
here's the thing, and this is I'm very critical of people that don't vote or don't utilize their right to vote.
Yeah,
I always say, hey, if you don't vote, shut up and sit down because you're not part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go out and vote and you lose, you lose. Like the
yeah,
majority of your state or the majority of your of the constituency votes a certain way. Hey, better luck next time. You know,
yeah,
um, whatever it is, right? Like be they Republican, Democrat, or other. It's crucial for us to be active in our communities and in our voting because that allows us to be part of the conversation. That allows us to show up in the voting booths and in the numbers that tally up to whoever the representative that wins is. So this way, I'm like New York City. Hey, the majority of the people that voted for a guy that's a democratic socialist.
yeah.
Hey, it's the majority of the people that voted.
You're
So
right. You're right.
you know,
You're
You know
right.
what?
so
But you
let them deal with the fire that's going to be put to their ass, or maybe he might end up being pretty good. Who knows?
No, we'll find out how much socialist is in New York City when they have the final election in November of this year.
It's
Yeah.
going to be freaking
Well,
phenomenal with that. I mean, look at that like the NBA playoffs.
Right. I am
You're going to
too.
have him. You're going to have Trump.
for me, it's really hard. Like when I look at politics to say, socialist or fascist or this or that or these titles, because a lot of times we forget that America is a tapestry of all sorts of political beliefs and that it's interwoven into like the very fabric of what we have now. So if we look at something like the Star Spangled Banner or stuff like that, you, some of these things, some of these very nationalistic songs that we have were actually written by people that were actual socialists, without hiding it. You look up and research it; they were socialists. Um, so I don't know. I just feel like people deserve the leaders that they vote in and what they allow.
Yeah,
Let them
I
deal
agree.
with it.
I agree
I
with that.
definitely agree with that.
Yeah, people deserve the consequences of their actions for sure. Now, pushing the conversation forward. Deuce, did you have anything you wanted to hit on before we pushed it?
Yeah, I don't want to suffer from what people vote in all the time. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
I can agree with that
I don't
also.
want to be collateral damage in that.
No.
Yeah.
But nah, that's it.
But since we're talking a little bit about socialism, we're pushing forward over to the Supreme Court ruling on birthright citizenship.
Yeah.
And at this point, because like we were saying, I think Marquis said it, MK said it. Like, there's so much happening. Who can keep up with everything? Because I can't even remember when this came out, but a couple of days ago. I don't think ruling on birthright citizenship actually ended up happening the way a lot of Americans thought it was going to happen. It wasn't litigated in the fashion that a lot of us thought it was going to actually be thought. And I'm happy about that. Let me say that. Let me put that out there. What you got, Deuce?
They didn't vote. They didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
The administration was slick. They challenged the lower court's ability to do a nationwide injunction against executive. So that's what they argued. It was very strategic. I kudos to them for doing it because I think they feel like they would have lost the argument for birthright citizenship. But this is a roundabout way to attack that.
Deuce, and guess what? That roundabout way, well, now the states will have more control for state rights. So,
yes,
and what it actually also makes it do is that now you have to push it up to the Supreme Court instead of just keeping the lower courts because some of these judges thought they had so much juice they thought they could control the nation off of a judgment.
Well,
and granted,
okay.
and some,
every
some of the
plaintiff,
judges,
every plaintiff, every plaintiff, not to cut you off, Mr. Evans, every plaintiff, unless they do a class action, will have to file a lawsuit in that particular state, in that particular county, if they're trying to fight their deportation or whatever. So if you're down south, if you're going up in those courts down south.
But also, if the executive branch is overstepping, because it said that the judicial branch was overstepping.
Yeah.
Their retort was that because the executive branch was overstepping.
All the EOs.
So now what it's saying is the executive branch can overstep, but there's nothing there to set them back in place unless it goes to the Supreme Court. We all know
that's how it's supposed to be. They have to make a problem.
How slow
a problem
is that,
has to happen, and then the problem has to go through the process. It has to go to the major rulings, which is Supreme Court. You can't just go off a district judge who goes, you know what, slavery's legal now, and it's an all-around nation thing. It's like, nah, homie, you got to bring it to the top court.
But they got to speed the process up because the executive branch will be like, slavery back in place right now. How long would it take for it to percolate up to the Supreme Court?
I agree with you on that one. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
But the problem is
no, because you can challenge that in your particular county as a plaintiff. You can challenge that ruling, and then when that judge makes that ruling won't go to all the other states. It'll just stay in that particular area of that county or in that state.
No, it's just that plaintiff.
Right, just that plaintiff. Right.
The area.
Correct. Just that plaintiff. Just right. That's right.
And so what happened with this actual thing, because it can actually get to the Supreme Court in an expeditious manner. And what they do, they have a shadow book, and it allows an actual case to be seen by them in a faster manner than what would actually happen previously. And that's why this case, it went from the lower courts to the Supreme Court very fast, because they knew it was coming, but they also made space to hear it and accept it. Right.
So it's because the administration pushed it. It's because the administration pushed that one.
Emergency docket. That was emergency.
It's an emergency docket. Absolutely.
No, what emergency? The SCOTUS pushed that. Not SCOTUS. POTUS.
The Lord.
POTUS.
Yeah.
President pushed that. Yeah, they have the ability to push some things forward.
They do.
Involves national things.
But just because POTUS pushes it doesn't mean the Supreme Court is actually going to hear it, because they can push it back.
They do have to do some of those ones, like things like that.
Not all the time.
That's why it got pushed up like it did.
So there are there are tons of different lawsuits happening around the country that would have just as much weight as this would, because of the executive orders that have been pushed out, that they haven't heard yet and seen yet, that have been ruled on by lower court judges. But this one, they pushed it because it was like Deuce was saying, it was done in such a slick fashion that it addressed the Constitution directly, quote unquote directly, but nothing was actually talked about when it came to amending an actual amendment. Right? Everything was always actually about the jurisdiction of a lower court judge to have a nationwide injunction set out. So the Supreme Court doesn't always have to necessarily hear things straight way, but some things they have on what's called a blacklist, or like Rich was calling it, an emergency docket, in order to be filtered up faster than other things, because it could have had sweeping implications, and it still does. Don't get me wrong, a nationwide injunction, being able to do it versus pushing something as a class action, those still have sweeping wide consequences to the people who are going to actually be going to courts to actually have these things heard. But not everything's heard in an expeditious manner. SCOTUS doesn't work for POTUS.
So that birthright citizenship issue will be addressed in the next session, starting in October.
But you know how we can fix this, right?
Get rid of them?
No. The people who's supposed to be working should be fucking working. That's Congress.
Agreed.
At the end of the day, that's why SCOTUS and POTUS are on TV so much, doing so much, because those bums aren't doing anything over there bullshitting.
Who, Congress?
They could do something with Roe v. Wade. They could do something with birthright citizenship. They could do something with citizenship in general. But we're too busy arguing over what's a real woman and how can we make laws for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is just a Congress that has absolutely no work ethic. They just want to argue and do political theater than do anything else.
Well, they were supposed
because
to.
Because if you look at the amount of bills that have passed and compare them to previous um, um, Congress sessions, these guys aren't doing shit. Sorry,
Yeah.
pardon the. They're
No, no,
just
no.
not.
Well,
It's
hold on. Here's where it gets tricky, in my opinion. If Congress did the same old, then we say nothing's different. The one thing we can say about this particular president, it's never a dull moment, never a dull day. He's going to tweet every day 20 to 25 times. He's going to tell you what he's doing. And then the stuff he doesn't want you to know, he may tell you that too on his off days. So this whole birthright citizenship has been an issue for years because I know it's not right. And I know why they created it for the enslaved African and the descendants of the enslaved Africans. That was not created for someone to come to the country legally and then have children and those children get birthright citizenship. Now, will the Supreme Court decide to clarify that birthright citizenship? They don't have to pass an amendment. They just clarified in a ruling and say, hey, birthright citizenship was created for a certain purpose, but it was not created for people to come to the country illegally and have children, and those children get birthright citizenship. That is not the spirit of the 14th Amendment. Do they have the political courage? Do they think they can do this and keep the country united? I don't know.
Dude, you know we ain't gonna fall apart off of this one. I mean, we've been going through so many potty cakes, we damn near shell shocked.
Facts. Hey, it's like Steve Bannon said before Trump got in. His biggest mistake was he moved too slow last time. Now he's moving at muzzle speed.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking about the big beautiful bill. If that gets passed, that's going to handcuff the judicial system even more because now they won't be able to hold government officials in contempt for defying a court order.
That's a great point.
Oh man, where Marquise go? That was fun. So let me say this. I agree with Rich 100%. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were written and were done for the enslaved peoples of America. However, because of the language and the way that the language is set inside of the Constitution, it's expanded. It's expanded. So you cannot rule out birthright citizenship. An example of that is the First and Second Amendments. Right? Those First and Second Amendments were not written for the enslaved peoples at the time to enjoy. Right? As a matter of fact, the Second Amendment was written to protect wealthy white men from enslaved peoples. That's the reason behind the Second Amendment. However, after the ratification and citizenship happened, we also have the rights to those amendments.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so if we simply stop at where the spirit of the law is, we understand the origin, the point of origin, the reason behind it. However, we can't stop there because the language does not absolutely address those points alone.
Mm-hmm.
Does that making sense? Hit or miss?
I think they're going to clarify with the Thomas and Alito want that birthright citizenship clarified, okay? And they're going to want to overturn to where you cannot come to this country and have children. And those children, if you come to the country legally and you have children, and that person's father is not a U.S. citizen or naturalized or whatever, that child is not getting, quote, U.S. citizenship. If they clarify that and make that clear, then they have to also make clear, what about the ones who are already here, the dreamer children? Mm-hmm. What happens to them?
This probably kick them out.
And so that's why I said, if they can overturn this, those oh God, I said 6 liberals, 6 conservatives.
Conservatives, yeah.
If they can overturn that birthright citizenship and clarify that and think they can keep the country together, that thing has been overturned a long time ago. So can you, just like this is very similar to when they wanted to keep Trump off the ballot. It was a 9-0 decision because he was never charged with insurrection. And he said some other stuff that, okay. I know you're not accepting that. I know you're not accepting that. But hold on. The conservative and the liberal judges, 9-0, put his ass on the ballot. because they knew they were going to flip the country. They was going to lose this country. We were going to have a civil war.
I don't know if they were going to lose the country by keeping them off the ballot, man.
Okay,
that's one state. I don't think.
Okay. I'm telling you,
it's a hypothetical. So we there's no way to test it.
I told Mr. Glass this when it happened. I said they have to rule 9-0. They can't make this a political fight. It has to be unanimous. Put President Trump's name back on that ballot in Colorado and all the ballots across the nation. Because if they had not done that, I'm telling you,
they would have lost the country. It's a hypothetical, so we can argue this all.
Well, you got more confidence. You got more confidence that some of these crazy groups in this country, on the far right, and you got some on the far left. You got more confidence that they won't disrupt the country. You got more confidence than I do.
Name a group on the far left.
Antifa.
That's not far left.
Okay. Well, okay. All right. So, I mean, you guys are. This is why you can't even have a good call. You can't talk to no one today because everyone has their own definitions. See, this is where. Hold on. This is where the transgender thing, the LGBTQ plus. This is where this comes into play. When you can't define a man from a woman, then everything is up for debate.
I will agree with you on that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah.
You won't have an argument with me, or an argument or debate with me about that, because again, when that foolishness, again, like Oscar said, it's performative. These guys are going through performative measures. It's good for TV. It's good for entertainment, but they're not working. They're not doing anything. They're not actually working for the benefit of the people, right? So, with that being said, that. He's not. I just want to address these comments. He's not saying that MAGA should be king. I don't wholeheartedly agree that if they would have kept candidate Trump off the ticket, the country would have been in turmoil. I know a lot of people would have been pissed off.
Yeah, why did rule 9-0 when those liberal judges did not want to go on that vote? They didn't want to vote like that.
Well, I think they did it for very similar reasons as to why they don't change a lot of child support or custody law, and it's because it's tradition. Right, a person they know what the right thing to do might have been, but there was no black and white to say that they had to enforce what they knew what right would have looked like. So have him on. If we know he's a felon, we got it. But there's no language that says that a felon can't run for the highest seat in America.
So there's a guy on here, a random independent. Now you know I'm not MAGA, but this person's he wants to have his voice heard. So just like Mr. Evans,
I'll put it back in the comments. I'll put it back in.
No. Just like Mr. Evans, he came on here, and you saw how my whole tone changed with him because he came on and he talked to me, and I said, "Hey, I respect that." Now this random independent, if he wants to come on, because I'm not a MAGA, I'm not a Republican, I'm a straight shooter. But see, they put people like this on these different podcasts to see what they can do, because I don't know how many numbers you're getting on this podcast, and you may be getting numbers that you don't even realize. So they'll put people in these comments to see what they can do. But the fact is this country is split down the middle, and for the first time in American history, all the things that Black America was saying about this country from the very beginning, now it's all out and it's being exposed to the rest of the world. So now he's saying that I'm regurgitating MAGA talking points. No, I'm not MAGA. I'm not regurgitating anything. I'm a straight shooter. See, but this person, if they want to come on here and get at me,
they've got more than the space available.
Give him the link so he can come on here.
I posted it already.
Mr. Evans was your friend. He came on because he came on righteous ground. He wasn't trying to do this. He wasn't trying to do that. He was calling it straight what he was seeing. Listen to this. The 14th Amendment in Birthright Citizenship was never meant to only be applied to children of previously enslaved. He's an absolute lie. He's an absolute lie. The truth's not in him. And that's why I was going after Mr. Evans, because I knew other people would come in trying to say the same thing, trying to hide the racist beliefs that they have.
So
now,
Oscar,
I read to you where it says here, 13th and 14th and 15th, known as the Reconstruction Amendments, to address slavery. But this random independent, you ain't so independent. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't have enough education to come talk to a person like me. I'm
And
sorry.
that's what I was. So I was about to push that over to Oscar as well. SCOTUS ruling, birthright citizenship, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. What's your take on those? There's a lot. There's a lot happening right now.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot happening, and I think that the
Right.
problem is that there's so much complexity in this, and
Mm.
I really truly feel for anybody that has to rule on this, because of the fact that I'm going to give you an example in the complexity of this. Do both parents have to be illegal? What if one parent is a citizen
Mm.
and one parent is not?
That's correct.
Ooh.
Then
Ooh.
Yeah.
that child
There
gets
should be
So
a.
citizenship. That's
Oh
so
correct.
now
No,
that
wow.
no,
say
no.
for instance as an example, say for instance the mother is a citizen, but the father is not. So does that automatically rule it null and void, and
No,
that
the
person
child
cannot
gets
get
citizenship
citizenship?
because one of the parents is a U.S. citizen or has been naturalized. That child gets citizenship. There's no question behind
Yeah.
that.
What
No
what
question behind
uh
that.
what if somebody, as an example, is here on something like a TPS, has been in the country for over 15, 16 years, has a child here, because obviously in 15, 16 years, a lot can happen. They're here on a temporary protection. They're
Hmm.
not illegal by any means, but they're not
Right.
citizens. So does that
Right.
mean their
Don't
Mm.
children
they
are
don't
not
get full?
citizens?
They don't get full. They don't get the full. Any person who comes to this country as a guest does not get the full benefits
That's not
of
true.
a U.S. citizen.
It depends on how that's defined.
Okay.
Remember when we pulled up the TPS stuff, right? When I
Yeah.
pulled that up,
Mhm.
and we were also talking about different statuses of citizens. We read
Yep.
outside of voting essentially that if a person is here, they get the full rights and benefits of an American
Mm.
citizen, minus those things,
Correct.
unless there's crime, there's criminal activity
Mm.
No,
involved.
they don't. No, they. You
Correct.
know what? You know what? I tell you what. Because there's two trains of thought on that. There's no clear answer on that. But I guarantee you, when they make this ruling on that birthright citizenship, they're gonna have to address all those. They're gonna have to address all of those
That-
different points.
and that's why it's so complex, because the fact of the matter is, like, when somebody is here, uh they don't have a citizen or resident status, TPS, protection status. They're here either as asylum seekers or they're here under a protection
Yeah.
status. So now
Mhm.
the tough part is they do have the ability to be protected under the laws of the United States because they are here under protection. um and like James said, uh that can easily be ruled out with being, and this has always been a thing. Like, if you're under TPS and you commit a crime, you are eligible for deportation. You get the
Yeah.
boot,
Yeah.
because as soon as you do something illegal while you're trying to get naturalized or trying to get to the next step, which would be a residency, green card holder, and then citizenship 5 or 10 years after that. I forget exactly what it is. I think it's 5 years after that. Um, any point up until your next hearing, y- you can get the boot,
Yeah.
for doing anything
Mhm.
illegal. So I just don't understand. Um, I understand the issue with having somebody come in here and do anchor babies. Like, they just come here, fly here,
Mm.
have a kid here, then take off, right?
Mm.
Um, I truly just feel for people that have been in the country for such a long time. And
Mm.
this is where, even within the Latino community, say immigrant community, there is this debate. I was just in some focus groups with the Latino community, immigrant community, here in the Bay Area, and there are some concerns in terms of what had happened with all the mass migration,
Mm.
giving asylum cases to millions of people. Um, though some of those folks are here illegally, they've been in the states for well over 20 years. Some of them 15, 20 years,
Mm.
um, seeking to legalize their status or being under a TPS, but feeling like somebody just came over the border, or somebody just showed up at the border center and said, "Hey, asylum," and then all of a sudden they're, within a year or
Jump the
two, they're
line.
given status.
They jump the line.
So they're
Yeah.
like, we've been really busting our asses in the United States, working with lawyers, working with things, spending
Mm.
money, doing this,
Yeah.
doing that, starting a life and rooting our lives here, and 20 years, 15 years, and then somebody just comes in. I'm an asylum seeker. I need help. I'm being persecuted in Venezuela or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you know,
But
They're
Can
here's
you,
here
the thing.
Rich,
legally.
I got one question. I got one
So
question
so
because
it's really complicated with all that.
I read
Yeah.
about that. If you could like just talk about that a bit more, because I've read that once you're over here illegally, especially for a duration of time, it's
Yeah.
extremely difficult to become a legal citizen. I think a lot
Yeah.
of us underestimate the difficulties involved in that because we don't know.
Yeah.
I
Well,
underestimated.
that's the biggest challenge with a lot of this because we being the general public people, the idea is that people can just go to immigration services and go like, hey, I want to start legal proceeding, right?
Mm.
It's not as simple as that.
Mm,
You have to have a protection of some sort. So TPS was created because of the wars of the 1980s in Latin America. A lot of people leaving Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, and those countries. Mexico hardly ever has any protection status because it's so close to the border.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
so for folks that are from Mexico, it's very, very hard for them to ever get legal status. They will have like the temporary field worker status where they come into the United States, work for some time, go back to Mexico, and then keep going back and forth like that.
Mm.
Right.
But for all intents and purposes, programs like TPS, and there are several others for Central Americans and South Americans. Um, it's very rare, but people that are here illegally, good luck trying to become legalized. Unless
mm.
there is some reason
But Oscar,
beyond,
Wow.
but Oscar, here's one of my problems with that. Because you speak the righteous truth. If there's a certain percentage of Latin America or Latinos in the Southwest that say, "Hey, we lost the Southwest. We want this land back," and so you come over here illegally, you know you're illegal, and the same
Mhm.
gringo that beat you in the war for this land, you come back over here illegally and let him exploit you, and then you stay here for 20 years, and you don't get the TPS that the other people further down in Latin America get, but you've been exploited. So the same person that exploited you to begin with, and you lost the Mexican-American War, you came back over and let him do it to you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in the black community. If I complain
Yeah.
about racism, but I'm still going out here getting high on crack cocaine, even though it's readily available, at some point, I can't put this all on the white man. At some point.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
So,
I think for illegal immigration, I think it's a lot of it stems from pure necessity and survival. Like
Yeah.
people immigrate because they think that coming to the United States will give them a better future and the opportunity for a better future. I think it's very rare that people come in here criminally with a bad intent. It's very rare. Does it happen? Yes, because when you put people together in poverty in certain
Yeah.
inner cities, that just happens because survival is what happens. And if survival means you have to bust a few windows and do this and do that, if people are in survival mode at that point. Do I
Mhm.
condone it? Hell no. But unfortunately, those are the conditions that happen in major inner cities. And that's, where we get the gangs, and survival is part of that
Mhm.
too, and fitting in and having family or somewhere to fit into. But the reality is that I don't think people come to the United States with ill intention in
Mhm.
a mass majority. Um, and the one of the reasons why I'm controversially as a Latino immigrant to the United States, but don't believe in illegal immigration is because of that very thing that you said. I think the exploitative nature of being illegal in the United States is really tough for a lot of people, and it's why why should we continue promoting the abuses and low pay of people and
Mm.
keeping them in that status like indentured servitude,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Because we
I
know
think the
we
answer.
know we generally know what happens when people become legalized, right? If they're in the illegal status, they have to survive, so they'll take any job that comes to them because it's a job that hires them, whether it pays them $4 an hour, $3 an hour, or just gives them housing, right? Once you legalize them, what happens? They go, hey, I don't want to take that job. I can take that
Yeah.
$20 paying job.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do that field work anymore. I have the opportunity to have the right to work at a fast food joint that pays a little bit more.
Oscar, you just confirmed what I said, me being pro-labor, that illegal immigration hurts the working class. You just confirmed it.
Mm-hmm.
You just confirmed what I've been saying for the last several weeks about this.
There's I feel like the answer. Well, I was gonna make this quick thing. I want to say this statement and see if you guys agree with it.
Yeah.
America's religion is capitalism. Does capitalism need a slave class in order to exist? Correction. Does capitalism need a slave class in order to operate efficiently?
It unfortunately always needs the laboring class, the low laboring class, the middle laboring class, and the executive class. That's just the structure in which it works, you know. Unfortunately, if not, it kind of implodes on itself, and then it has to go to outsourcing its labor, right? But then when it's outsourcing its labor, we lose the understanding of manufacturing, and we sell that off to somebody else. That's why China has been coming up in the game, because they manufacture everything for us. They make the computer chips, they make the phones, they make the computers, they make every single thing that we've ever done. They'll clone something that we thought was a trade secret within seconds, and then all of a sudden you see all these like copies everywhere, right? So it's a big challenge, and you know, the immigration thing is it's a tough one, and I feel like anybody in Congress or anybody in the Supreme Court or anybody in politics that has to rule and make these choices have some really tough choices to make.
Wait a minute. It's only tough because you allow the problem to continue. So the more you use crack cocaine, each year, it becomes tougher and tougher for you to ever stop. If you would have stopped that shit in the bud, well, you should never started.
Yeah.
So if you had never allowed illegal immigration to begin with, you wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah.
But now you let this immigration problem.
Yeah. No, that's 100% true. I think the problem that we had, and I will say, you know, in terms of the Biden administration allowed too many people to come into the country at once, instead of having the vetting process outside of the country. Typically, you would go to, hey, I want to get a visa to the United States, whether it's a work visa or a student visa or whatever. You'd go to an embassy in your respective country, or, you know, some form of the process. But to have millions of people, it's not fair to the people already here in the United States that are working through a process of naturalization, because now you have a system that is overburdened by new cases more so than old cases, and old cases get put on the back burner, you know. So it just really affects the whole of the system, right?
Well, wait. When you act like you're the world's leader and you say we're the greatest country on earth, I'm guilty of saying that, and everybody wants to immigrate to your country, and some of these people are coming from countries that are having problems. Instead of the world's leader trying to go to that country and say, hey, what can we do to keep your people happy in their own country? But because you demonize minorities in this country and said that we don't want to work, no, we want to work for some money. And you say, well, you know, quote, some of these black folks, they don't want to work. Well, that slavery experience that you say was so far away, when the slaves got their freedom, they said, we're never working for peanuts. We're not working for nothing again. You're going to pay us something.
Yeah, got to get something out of it at this point.
Yeah. And at this point, they'd rather, I just say this, but there are some black folks who would rather get high on crack cocaine and rob liquor stores and sing rap tunes than to work. But they want to work for a substantial wage. Americans, white or black or Mexican or whoever, Americans born in this country, you're not going to work them like a dog. They're not going for it. You don't necessarily have to do crack cocaine. Maybe you can become an alcoholic or whatever you want to become, but you're not working like a dog. And so to those people in foreign countries who come over here and allow themselves to be exploited, and then they start crying when you get a certain president that says, well, I'm sending you back to your country. You allowed yourself to be exploited when you came here. And now there's a possibility you may get caught and sent back. And you say, well, I have children. I had children here. But you knew when you came over, you weren't here legally. So you knew that there's a possibility that you may get sent back. You always ran that risk in year one, year two. But by year 10, you were comfortable.
Look,
Yeah.
all week I have been singing. I will vote for Donald Trump. I have been singing that. And I've been singing it on purpose.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
reason why I've been singing it is because they were trying to play to an ego in the hopes that, well, if I do this and I act this way, maybe they won't see me. They'll see everybody else, but they won't see me. The same band that was singing that made that song, the husband is getting deported from that
Mhm.
same group, that exact same group. I was speaking with a
Mhm.
coworker last week, and she was saying something about leaving. She's about to move somewhere, so on and so forth, and she was talking about being a single woman and her dogs. And I was like, well, wait a minute, ain't your boyfriend going with you? What happened? And she was like, well, no, he's Bosnian, and he's a felon, and so he's going to he's getting to a point to where he's about to get deported. Right. So,
Mhm.
like, I'm saying that just to say, Oscar said it before. We're suffering the consequences of the votes. That's what we're suffering. And again, when it comes to a humanistic aspect of it, I'm driven like, man, let these folks come over here and be happy. Let them be happy. But
Yeah,
to the letter of the law, not just the spirit, I understand that it can't actually process that way.
Yeah.
I
you
can't.
Yeah.
can't. You can't.
It. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying you can't allow people to keep coming. If you allow people to come to your country illegally for 2 or 3 years, that's one thing. But see, you got a history of this from, I think, the 70s, maybe the 60s or the 50s, of allowing
Yeah.
illegal
Yeah.
immigration. Okay, so this is a
Yeah.
culture that America has created, and they know that people from Mexico, the land neighbor, it's easy for them to cross over and work, and then they'll pay all that money into Social Security off a Social Security number that's not theirs, and then they can't even claim the money when they turn 65. So you got exploited for being Mexican, for being brown. You got exploited for you got discriminated for being Mexican. You got exploited for low wages, and then when you paid money into the tax system, you can't get that. They screwed you 3 different ways, and you said, "Well, that's okay. I got to take care of my family." No,
It's a
no.
there's there's a fourth in there also because they're still not paying them the same wages that they would pay everybody else that would be doing that job.
Yep. Correct. Yep. Um.
Okay. So I said low wages. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My bad. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
agree with you. I agree with you.
when I hear people, I'm not just gonna pick on Mexicans. We go all the way down to Latin America. There's people from China sliding over. You don't hear about that one. They slide
Yeah.
over and
There.
go over to San
There's.
Francisco.
There's. So one of the. the geo the geopolitics of this all is what's making it really complicated. I mean, we think so right now. People, when they look at it, they go, "Oh, like a lot of Mexicans are coming in through the border." That's not necessarily true. There's less Mexicans now than there have been previous years that are crossing the border. What are like people that are crossing the border are people, like you said, from China, from Syria, from places that we typically don't see migrating. And the reason is, I don't know if you've seen that they come up the Darien Strait,
Hmm.
which is where basically it's all a jungle. So people go into places like Colombia. They fly to Colombia, they go up the Darien Strait, they go into Latin America and find their way to Mexico and to come over to the border. There was a point in time where like Chinese people that had made it into the United States via the border from China, they were actually going on TikTok showing people how to exactly go through the border.
Yes. Yes.
And so a lot of
Yes.
Chinese were coming over and finding those gaps within the walls to get into the United States. Um, so there's this mass migration coming from all over the world, all over the globe. Typically, it's from totalitarian regimes. Typically, it's from places we've places that have just really poor living conditions, and that's the unfortunate part. some of those people stay in Latin America. You see like an increased number of merchants from China in Latin America. You see an increased number of people from India in parts of Latin America. They have like Indian restaurants now. So you go to like Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and you go like, hey, there's like, you know, Chinese restaurants, there's Indian restaurants, and there's an Indian community, Chinese community. Some of them just stay there. They don't all come up. However, what I'm getting at is that that's part of the game of geopolitics and how it's changed over time. Because one thing that changed is that we created bilateral agreements with Mexico and some Latin American countries that then required visas to get in from any other country. So it pushes out people that would go into Mexico over the border. It pushed them out further and further and further and further, hoping it would deter immigration from those countries. So that's why people now go to Nicaragua, because Nicaragua is not very amicable with the United States. They go to places like Colombia and Venezuela, and that's their starting points for the migration up. That's why we started seeing caravans, because they no longer it's no longer easy to go to Mexico, take a flight to Mexico and cross the border. So Mexico's been a pretty good ally for us in that regard, pushing that further down. But Nicaragua hasn't. And Nicaragua's been allowing people to fly into Nicaragua, and then they go into, you know, El Salvador or Guatemala to come up. El Salvador has been pretty good in terms of that as well. They've been an ally in terms of finding new ways to keep their own people employed, but also helping us keep illegals from making their way all the way up to the United States. So there's all these things that are happening, but the big mass caravans, it's because of the countries that now need visas for people to come into their countries, and it's agreements that I believe we had with those countries to deter that.
Man, that's a great explanation.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to move it along. I got to get to my kiddies. But with that being said, Rich, did you have something else to add to that? All right.
I heard what he said on TV. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was great. We're gonna jump into our final thoughts panel. Give me 1 second. Get to where I need to be. There it is. Final thoughts. There we go. All right, Rich, I think you got the big box first for final thoughts.
All right, so I'll make mine quick. Hey, it's been a hot evening this evening.
Yeah.
You know, even though the Supreme Court did not make its ruling on the birthright citizenship, but on the federal ban by judges, that's no longer, federal judges can no longer make a ban that goes across the nation. I think that's good. This birthright citizenship is really a review of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments regarding the enslaved African and those descendants of the enslaved Africans. Maybe that's something America really doesn't want to talk about, because that shows you the uniqueness of the enslaved African and what they went through. Maybe America doesn't want to talk about the American-Mexican War, and why a lot of Latinos in the Southwest say we want our land back because you didn't pay that $35 million for that treaty. I did pay attention to my Latino history class, even though they thought I didn't pay attention. I did. So America has a rich history of exploiting people. And if they have to, and now currently, if they have to exploit their own people from Europe to get ahead, to keep capitalism alive, that's what they'll do. I hope this issue of birthright citizenship, it has to be resolved once and for all and be done. Thank you very much.
I can dig it. Ask. Thank you for hanging out with us as always. What are your final thoughts, my brother?
Final thoughts. None of this is ever easy. We're going to continue arguing till our faces turn blue in terms of, you know, hot button topics. But one thing that we have to always remember is the humanity in things. We have to remember that things have to be the fine balance of the rule of law, but also the humanity of people. We can't do humanity a disservice by ignoring the suffering of people. And we have to rule with compassion, but we also have to rule with the law. And that's one thing that we have to remember.
Absolutely. I can dig it. Give me 1 second. I am flipping my camera back around. That's for everybody on TikTok that's watching. so they know I'm not actually talking to myself. There's an actual panel. They can hear you all, but they can't see everybody. I've got to get a different stand to get that set up. But final thoughts. We are still sucking wind out here in America. That's the only way to say it. That's the only way to put it. And that's the only honest thing about it. There's a lot happening. And the hope is that we all make it out alive on the opposite end, and not just alive, but better. God, making it out alive, sometimes you just wish that, golly, I would have been better off dying in the war. But making it out better as a country. Our mettle is being tested as Americans. Be it you riding with the administration or directly against the administration, that centerpiece, the American people, we the people, our mettle is being tested. Our actual allegiance to the Constitution is being tested. I don't care about the politics of it all. They're always going to have performative stances because that's what they do. That's how they keep people leaning forward. But I think this panel is what needs to happen across the country more so. Having actual discussions with each other, whether or not you agree with each other. Sure, we can all find our echo chambers and we can be there, we can stay there, we can hang out there and be comfortable, but comfortability has never led to progress at all. It actually does the exact opposite. So America, we're being tested. Our mettle is being tested. And again, the hope is that we are a better country on the opposite end of this, whatever. I don't even have a definitive term to call it. We're just being tested. It's goodness gracious. This tumultuous time in our history. I'll call it that. I'll call it that. Yeah, it's still a great time to be alive, as always, as long as you're on the side. And hopefully, as scientists continue to push forward in the grand expanse of things, and that we find out we're not actually in a black hole, because we might be surviving in a black hole, which would explain a lot. But that's neither here nor there. With that being said, those were my final thoughts. And as always, I thank everybody who contributed to the panel tonight. Don't be a stranger. This is always an open platform for anybody who wants to come up and give their opinion, express themselves, who can deal with getting pushback or being in agreement with somebody, or who is asked a question to drill down on that just a little more. Help me unpack that a little bit, as it were. Right? Don't be afraid to defend your beliefs. And if it's something that you believe just on a surface level, be okay with being offended, because the only person that's offended out of that is you, not everybody else. That's your issue to deal with. So that's just grown people shit. That's the honest truth about it. But as always, thank everybody for coming up and hopping on the panel, and everybody for hanging out with us tonight. As always, we appreciate you. We respect you for it. Hit that Cash App. As you can see, we accept donations. We do that here on the Family Bloodline Podcast. Absolutely, all day, every day. We appreciate you and look forward to being with y'all tomorrow night. Also, Friday, I have a very special platinum guest series with Manny Lugo. There is a very special release we're going to be doing at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. He's out in Cali also. And so he's going to be dropping his debut song and video at the same time. And then I'll be able to actually get some questions in about the progression of that song. I'll be out in California later on this year doing some tracks also. I'll come hang. I'll let you know when I'm out there. I'm going to head up to Sacramento also. Hey, this is my travel season. This is it for me. I've run my fight. I've done 27 years in the Army, and I'm laying these down for a minute, and I'm about to live a little bit more and hang out. I need to go see some people, do some things. I miss folks. So with that being said, as always, thank y'all for hanging out. God bless and good night.